video. Today it is Tuesday, the 21st of January, 2025, and we're going to look at some really neat gadgets. See how that happened? Yeah, we're going to look at some neat gadgets today that I've found over the last few months, and I just wanted to compile it all into one video. Some of you may have seen one or two of these mentioned in the past, but that was informal. This is more official. We'll call it that. So I've got a machine here that we'll use to test the gadgets on. This is the what is this? The B760 Pro RSD4 from ASRock. Absolutely one of my favorite builds I've ever done right here. And you'll see a lot of these B760 Pro RSD4s on this channel because they're such a great value. We're still using DDR4 RAM. The DDR5 doesn't benefit you unless you're going to an i9 processor. You know, basically, that's more demanding of a processor that can take advantage of DDR5. Otherwise, if you're putting DDR5 into a lesser chip like an i3, an i5, possibly even an i7, there's no difference other than your wallet, just so you know. So this is a great value proposition using a stock cooler with a 13500. You could also use a 12500 or 14500 CPU. They'll all fit in here. I've got a 4 terabyte Samsung 990 Pro. I don't know why I put such a fast drive in it. It's got 64 gigs of memory, which is insane for a system that is more or less right at the beginning of, I'd say, on the border between medium and high end. It's right there, kind of teeters back and forth. So with Windows 11 Pro, 64 gigs of RAM, 4 terabyte storage, i5, I've updated the BIOS, I've updated Windows, so we don't have to sit through all of that. And let me just make a little note here that I did verify that Windows is activated now. When I first install it, I don't activate Windows until I know for a fact I'm done with everything. All my drivers are installed. My latest BIOS is installed. I have heard stories where people update a BIOS and it breaks their Windows activation. The good news is buying these Windows license keys online is very inexpensive, and of course we always have links for you guys if you want to take advantage of a supported key versus buying somewhere else and rolling the dice and hoping for the best. A lot of Windows and Office key sellers online don't support what they sell. It's often reflected in the price, right? So it's like you can pay a little less, you're on your own. You can pay a little bit more, and then you've got support to call and assist you if you're doing something wrong or if the key doesn't work, that they can provide you with a new key. That's why I personally align myself with SCD keys. I'm not a hobbyist. I need to run absolute legitimate keys that are going to work, and if there's any problems, I have support. On the other hand, you could say, well, if you're saving a few bucks per key, and overall, if most of the keys work without a problem, then if you do have to repurchase a key because a key is bad, since you're not getting support, maybe that's more financially beneficial at scale. Or at scale, maybe you're having to replace keys at your own cost, even though they're cheaper, which at the end of the day ends up costing you more than buying the key with support. So you have choices, right? You can buy from the people that we promote, which we stand behind, or you can buy literally anywhere else, and there's nothing much we can do to help you if you make that choice and it doesn't work out well for you. It's a little bit of a gamble, but I do want to provide you with all the information. You know, we're not alone in offering these product keys. Where we're separate is we have the support and validation. The others, for the most part, they don't do that. They just go, hey, it's a cheap key, don't get me involved. Like the influencer, the person that's telling you, oftentimes says, if you have a problem with somebody on the, that I've promoted, that's your problem, that's between you and them. I don't do that here. I don't do that to my customers, and I don't treat you guys any differently. I don't say anything different to you that I wouldn't say to my customers. There's a liability and accountability that I have to be held accountable for any damages or what a customer might see as a theft. You took money and you didn't provide a service. When some company you don't know online does that to you, who do you go after? They might even be in a different country where the laws of your country they're not enforceable in their country, and they know that. On the other hand, they might be a great seller. So you can go through that discovery on your own, or you can just take advantage of the research I've done to find product keys that I need in my business, and I'm just sharing that on with you guys. So with that, today we're going to be looking at a couple of USB Ethernet adapters. This one is from WAVLINK. It's a 5 gig to USB-C adapter. Now, none of this does you any good if you're not transferring a lot or big files on your own local network. This doesn't make your internet any faster. This is wired, and you will need a 5 or 10 gig networking switch or networking router that supports this. Otherwise, this only runs up to 5 gig. So if I have a 5 gig network connection here, and I'm transferring the file in the building to another computer, and it has to go through a 1 gig switch, this only runs at 1 gig and not 5. Whatever is the slowest in the chain, so the computer connects to the switch or router, the other computer connects to the switch or router. Wired or wireless, doesn't matter. This wired connection can run up to 5 gigs. But if your router only runs at 1 or 2.5, or the wireless computer you're connecting only runs at 1, it's only going to run at whatever one is the slowest, right? You can have the fastest car on the freeway, but if everybody in front of you is driving slow, you can't drive any faster than the people in front of you. But if somebody has the same car as you, and you're both got an open road that's safe and clear and, you know, is in good condition, and the cars are well kept, then they both can match speeds, right? Same car, same everything. So if you went from 5 gig into a 5 or a 10 gig switch, because 5 gig switches are darn near impossible, then the 10 gig switch would then run at 5, which would be this maximum. And then you had another computer with another one of these running at 5. Then your data transfer is going to be 5 times faster than your 1 gig connection. Who's that for? Well, primarily it's for businesses or for people that are running with a lot of big files, video editing, photo editing, or a lot of tiny files where you're copying just tons and tons of data from one machine to another machine. This makes it very affordable. These are about $30, and currently they're not on Amazon right now. I don't know why. You can also buy this as an internal card that you can plug in to the slot on the machine, and we have one of those here as a wireless Wi-Fi 7 that's got RGB all over it, which I just thought was so stupid I had to buy it. So that would be an internal card, right? Whereas this could work on a laptop, this could work on a tablet. I can't see why not. A desktop. This is universal. This would require a free expansion port available to you. We've got a 10 gig network card. These aren't even for sale in the US. These have to be purchased off AliExpress. There's numerous people selling these anywhere from $100 to $150. We've put links in the video description below to AliExpress for both the WAVLINK and for the 10 gig. The 10 gig should be about $100. Otherwise, I think you're paying too much. Keep looking around AliExpress. Click on one and then see what suggestions fall below it and look at the prices. They're all made by the same company, IOCrest. I don't know why there's a variation in price. When AliExpress sellers realize Americans think something is cheap, they raise the price. So this was much cheaper when it first came out. The more popular influencers like me are making this, they keep raising the price to see how much they can get from you, just like an American company would do. So don't be taken to the cleaners. Know what it's worth. And, you know, if you want to overpay for it, don't let me get in your way. But I won't pay more than, you know, if it's 101, 102, that's fine. But if it's 110 or above, I'll wait. Because when people stop buying it, they'll bring the price back down to where it used to be. Finally, our friends over at Silicon Power. They've got some new RAM out they wanted us to test, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to test just RAM. What they've sent us here is 2 sticks of 32 gig DDR5 RAM that's RGB and white. So we will likely use this in a white build, which is not this. And this is DDR4, so I just realized now that I'm live that I should have brought out a different motherboard. I'm not sure why I brought this one out, other than no, I don't know why I picked this one. I've got a few to choose from, and maybe we'll switch it out. I got it all hooked up before the show, so it's all running and updated, but I just realized that. I'm sure it's going to run fine. This is just DDR5. Sorry, this is 32 gigs, not 64. It's 2 sticks, 2 DDR5 sticks, 16 gigs each, running at 6,400 megatransfers a second, so 6,400 speed. not 64 gig. This is why I need to wear my glasses. Yeah, 32 gig here. Let me put your glasses on too. Is that gonna work? There it is. 32 gig, 6400, not 64 gigs, 6400. I was thinking it said 32 gigs each, 64 gig total. But no, that wouldn't make any sense. The big number is the total, and there's two sticks that are 32 gig each. It is RGB, and from our friends over at Silicon Power, I've used their flash drives and other memory-related stuff that they make in the past. I do like this brand. They just don't have a really big selection. That's why you don't see them more often. But it's often a good value. This is a close-up of the WAVLINK. I bought this on Amazon. Now I can't find them on Amazon, but you can buy them on AliExpress for about $30. This is going to be USB Type-C. In order to get those kind of speeds, you need at least a 5 gig USB 3 connection. This is also going to be USB-C Thunderbolt 3 or 4 or 5. There's no sense plugging a 10 gig connection into a 1 gig or 2 gig USB port. That doesn't make any sense. So these are going to be both requiring Type-C. All right, and specifically this one, it's got to be USB 4 or it's got to be Thunderbolt. All right, and then finally, this is the close-up of the RGB Wi-Fi, which appears to have RGB on the antennas. I don't know why. Now Wi-Fi 7 is even better with RGB. This is just too fun to turn down. So, oh, I know why I picked this motherboard. It doesn't have any Wi-Fi on it, and I needed something that I could demonstrate Wi-Fi on without conflicting with onboard Wi-Fi. That's why I picked it. Now it's all making sense. Okay, so with that, let me say hello to everybody joining us in the chat today. Let's see, who do we have in here? Hello to, of course, Buster, our friend Peter Laycock there in Scotland with a 10-pound super chat. Buster says, hello, Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 35 degrees Fahrenheit or 2 degrees Celsius. Ooh, that's a little chilly. Welcome to our new member, Maria del Carmen Martinez. Welcome in, Maria. We're glad to have you here. I hope you just pop in and say hello at the very least. It doesn't matter how comfortable you feel. If you just simply say hello and nothing more, just watch the response in the chat room. We have a very friendly, kind community here, and we welcome other friendly, kind individuals into our community. Probably one of the biggest communities online, especially with regards to tech, where people aren't just constantly insulting one another over how much better they are because perhaps they have more money to spend. Having money doesn't make you a better person. In fact, I'm more impressed by somebody running something older that they've kept updated and running securely and properly than I am with somebody being able to spend money to buy the latest CPU and the latest everything, because, you know, that's not a skill. That's just wealth. With that, yeah, just pop in, say hello, and just watch the response you get. It's an amazing community that needs to be experienced to be appreciated. And I think once you do experience it, you're going to want to visit regularly, because there's a lot of real friendships that developed here and continue to develop here, which just makes me very happy. So welcome in. Thank you for supporting the channel. Bernard C. says hello, as does Viable Solutions, joining us from Ireland. Mark Baggett and Nick Poverman and Jonathan Davis Parsons and Luke Greenia all say hello. A shout out to Luke for a $25 PayPal contribution before the show. Right on. Thank you, Luke, joining us from Vermont. John Williams joins us at a balmy -3 degrees in Madison, Wisconsin. Hey, take that, Buster. -3. That's about 38 degrees Fahrenheit colder. Wow. That sounds chilly. Mark Gaines saying hello from Northern Ireland. There's Thomas MacT, Charlie Purdy. Welcome in, welcome in. Maralina, of course, our channel administrator, hanging out in there as well. And there is, oh, how about that thumbnail Mara did for today's video? Pretty clever. Frank Jimmy says hello. He says, I'm having some leftover cheese pizza with pepperoni. Hey, cheese pizza, that's what you could describe today's video intro and thumbnail. Cheesy. Nice. Enjoy that, Frank. You couldn't have picked a better pairing. A little cheese with some cheese, and we'll add a little cheese. Nothing gets more American than just putting cheese on everything. Let's see. Gary Bickle says hello. Doman 2000 joining us from the Netherlands. Welcome in, Doman 2000. Let's see. Who else? Who else? Trevor Schweitzer says hello from Australia. Good day, Trevor. Michael Lavelle says hello, as does just another cuber. I don't know what that means, but welcome in. Just trying to make sure, do my best to just read everybody's name out here in the beginning. Mecca Cameron says hello, welcome in. Mecca Cameron. And Matt joining us says hello. Essential Working Too Hard joins us, says happy Tuesday. Right on, welcome in. Cord Oliver joining us. Gerardo Quintana Rue, now a member for 32 months, just renewed membership, says hello. Thank you, Gerardo. Thank you for being a member for such a long time. We appreciate you. Patrick T says good afternoon. Eddie Casanova joins us. Our friend John Paul Bacon and Steve Mercura saying hello, as well as DeWald Buys, who says good day. Just Another Cuber has a question. I haven't read it. Let's just read it out loud. What's it say? Is there a way to set up graphic drivers automatic updates? I've had several issues across my 3 desktops. It seems in the last 3 months, all of them have had several issues with the same cause. Well, you'd have to be a lot more specific. What are the desktops specifically when it relates to graphics? Intel graphics, AMD graphics, NVIDIA graphics. And yes, they all have automatic updates, but depending on which one you have, they all do it differently, or they'd sue each other for copying their patented, trademarked ways of updating. Also depends on the age of the computers as well. So generally speaking, if it's an older computer, though, you won't get very many updates for it anymore. And always be sure and look in our chat room for responses. If I don't catch your answer, we have a very knowledgeable and helpful chat community here that will likely provide you an answer if you don't, or in addition to hearing one from me. Paul Connolly joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Paul, as well as Richard DeFries. He is in Ireland. Douglas Burchell says hello. Mats Olof joins us from Sweden. Says hello. All right. ER3888 joining us. Stev says hello from England. All right, then. Welcome in, welcome in. Jose Geraldo Alvarez says something in Spanish. Do I have a translate button? Translate to English. English. I am a fan and follower of your program, although I know nothing about systems. I like your advice. Right on. Well, thank you for that, and thank you to Google Translate. Sure. I understand English, but I can't speak it. I can write English, but I can't understand it when I don't know. That's weird to me when people write in a foreign language. It's one thing in the comment section where I have time to Google the translation, but during a live video, it does kind of throw me off. Jack Kugelman says hello from Toronto, where it's a minus 11 degrees Celsius. Ooh, that's 12.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, that's cold, and Toronto is expensive. Cold and expensive place to live. Hershey3 says hello. I enjoy the content. Well, thanks for joining us, Hershey. John Svensson says hello. Joe Russell and Fred Vandermeulen and Squishy all say hello. Welcome in, everyone, as well as Tim Teal. Mike Mink says hello. Ready for 4 hours of weather modeled. Snow of 1 inch. Quite sure what that means, but welcome in. We're good to see you. Sometimes I don't even know what I say, so it's fair play. JC Russell says it's snowing in Zachary. Where is Zachary? I don't know where that is. Safari 360 joining us says hello. Arnold Schmidt. 5 degrees Celsius here in Western Alberta. Sean Stewart says hello. Welcome in, Sean. Yeah, so basically, I will be complaining in about 4 months over how hot it is. And you're going to hear me complain about how miserable I am as we have over 100 days in a row every year of over 100 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures in Phoenix. We're breaking records every year to get a little bit hotter every year, a little bit longer, a little bit hotter. I think we were over 110 degrees in a row, over 100 degree Fahrenheit temperatures last year. I am not looking forward to that. So as you guys are telling me how cold it is, that sounds like heaven to me. I would much rather be cold because I can always put more on, or I can start a fire for free. Air conditioning is very expensive, and if it goes out, oh boy, if you thought it was expensive running it, you should try paying for a repair or a new unit. You got to finance that over many years. Most of us do. It's like $10,000. Then on top of that, it may not even work that well on a really hot day. It may drop the temperature 30 or 40 degrees from outside. That still makes it, 80 degrees in the house at sometimes, and it's very uncomfortable for me. So enjoy your cold weather. Now, granted, I'm not shoveling snow, but I also don't really go anywhere, so I don't think that would be an issue for me. And I think it'd be cheaper to pay the neighborhood kids to mow to shovel the snow than it would be to run the air conditioner. Anyway, I'm basking in the cool weather. If we could have this all year here in Phoenix, that'd be great, except that our population would probably quadruple. Then I wouldn't like it so much. All right, anyway, I've digressed into weather. John Williams said it was snowing on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Wow. They're really getting ready for the Super Bowl. Mats Olof said it's the climate change. I got news for you, Mats Olof. The Earth is a living thing. It's never always the same climate. You remember we had an ice age? Remember all this stuff in history? The Earth doesn't just stay one temperature forever. It never has. It cycles. So whether or not we contribute to it, I don't know. But I can tell you, the population being as big as it is on Earth isn't helping things. As long as the population is as massive and continues to grow, we're going to continue using more and more resources and expelling more things into the atmosphere. That's just one for the other. If we really care about the planet, we would have a smaller population, but they don't say that, right? They say you got to keep increasing the population. That increases how much gross domestic product can be created, strength of your army, and there's a different motivation behind why government wants a big population versus why there's a lot of scientists and things talking about climate change. But there's also a chance this climate change would be happening anyway. Whether it would be happening 10 years from now or at the same time, I can't say, but that is a typical cycle of Earth. So regardless of why, there's no denying there is some climate change happening. If it's just going up a degree every year, well, it won't be a problem in my lifetime. I mean, that's a selfish statement, but what can you do? In the meantime, moving away from that subject, I thought we'd play around a little bit today, not too serious of a video, with a few gadgets that for most of us are wants and not needs. I don't know what kind of data you're transferring that would require either a 5 or a 10 gig network adapter. If you're running a business and you have a bunch of people all trying to move data at the same time, something like these can be quite beneficial to productivity, where your employees aren't waiting as long for things to get done. If if I have this drink, right, I have all this drink, but if I'm sharing it with all of you, it'll be gone in 2 seconds, right? There's not enough resources here to share with everybody. So for that, we increase our resources to 5 gig or 10 gig, and that means things can happen more fractionally without consuming as much bandwidth. That's the idea behind it. It's not necessarily this one myopic focused thing that I can copy files, me personally, to my other thing by myself 10 seconds faster, because that's preposterous. How impatient are you? Even if you can cut your 5-minute file transfer down to 2.5 minutes or 2 minutes, it's not like you have to wait for it to finish. You just continue to use the computer while it's copying the files. So for most people just looking to go faster for no particular reason other than because you can, these are options to consider. But that's not why they exist. They exist because there is a need to share a resource amongst many people at the same time. Typically, you find this in businesses. You can also find it in some populated homes where there's somebody watching Netflix, somebody playing an Xbox or PlayStation, somebody's watching YouTube, somebody else is on a Zoom meeting, all simultaneously. And even for that, you wouldn't need a 5 or a 10 gig connection, but it certainly gives you room to continue to grow. And that includes maybe having wireless and wired Internet of Things devices like your thermostat, your garage door opener, your Ring doorbell camera, maybe an appliance, et cetera, et cetera. We keep adding more and more things. We have smart plugs and smoke detectors that are connecting to our internet. And all of that takes a little bit of bandwidth that adds up. But you've got to be able to have the bandwidth, right? So if you're paying for the basic speed from your internet service provider, your bandwidth is limited to what your ISP is delivering to you with regards to internet, right? With regards to Netflix and all, YouTube and all these other internet related things. On the other hand, if you've got the highest speed internet, but you're running a really slow network connection in the house, or an older router that you don't want to replace because there's nothing wrong with it, then you're not fully taking advantage of what you're paying for monthly to your ISP. Your ISP is just fine with that. If you're paying for a 2.5 gig internet connection, but you're really only using a gig, they don't mind. They don't mind one bit. So it does cost money, right? This is one of those things where it's not a level of skill. It's a question of how much money do you have? Because at $100 a pop for one of these, or even one of these, you're still at about $100 for Wi-Fi 7, or even at about $100 for a 10 gig wired network card that, that's again 10 gig. You're also going to spend on a network switch. So a 10 gig network switch or a router with 10 gig, like this one over here has 10 gig, but this is a $1,300 mesh system. Only the really high-end stuff has 10 gig ports, and even then we only get 2 of them. To buy a switch, you get a bunch of 10 gig ports. And you could say, well, that's interesting. The 10 gig switches that are Ethernet, meaning they have the, what do I do with my cables? They have a regular, like, clippy, that's a terrible, Ethernet cable. Let me find one. I'll give you an example. Let's grab this. And somewhere around here, I've got the SFP plus. But basically, let me just explain this to you. This is a regular Ethernet cable. I'm sure you have these. And the category 6A cables will carry 10 gig on them, up to, I think, up to 300 feet. Anyway, the switches that you can plug directly into, they're pretty expensive. Like a 5-port 10 gig switch is like $200 or 150, somewhere between those two prices. There's a different kind of 10 gig that's called SFP, and that's a much bigger connector that I brought out before, and I can't remember where I put them. And those connectors can adapt to this regular cable, but the switches are far less expensive. So if your switch has a bunch of SFP connectors on it, it's like a third of the price. So you go, well, gee, Carey, wouldn't you buy the one that's like $100 instead of the one that's $250? Isn't that a better deal? No, because it won't take these cables. It takes a more expensive cable that'll cost you about $12 to $20 a piece. And then depending on how many ports you've got, or you have to buy an adapter that's $20 to $30 to adapt it from SFP, and you'll have to do that for every single cable, at least at the end of the switch. If you have a 5-port switch and it's $20, let's call it down the middle. Let's say it's $25 for an SFP adapter to Ethernet. and you need 5 of them, that's $125 plus the cost of the switch, and you're back up to the price of just using this without adapters. See what I'm saying? Like, they're going to get you one way or the other. If you don't buy the adapters, then you have to buy SFP cables. And the SFP cables are also far more money than Ethernet cables, but they can run the data a lot further. So if you've got a really long way you want to run the data, it may be worth spending the extra money, because if you want to run the data more than 300 feet, 100 meters on Ethernet, you're going to have to spend more money to get boosters to boost the signal. It's 6 of one, it's a half dozen of the other. The problem I have with the SFP Plus connectors is they're really intended for business use. They get very hot, they will burn your fingers. They get that hot. That's how 10 gig runs. Even this adapter gets worryingly hot, and that's normal. If you don't like that, do not go to 10 gig. Maybe in the future they'll be able to cool that down, but the SFP gets even hotter. But in a business environment, and particularly where you're connecting a bunch of switches to other switches, SFP is the way to go. It's got the bandwidth, it's serious business equipment, and nobody cares about how hot it gets. That's just normal routine. Home users might be alarmed by it. So another reason to stay away from it. But it's definitely not cheaper. Nobody's getting away with anything, regardless if you go with SFP Plus or you go with Ethernet. You'll be approximately spending the same amount of money. The benefit with sticking with Ethernet is the standard, right? That everything else in your house is probably Ethernet anyway. We have a mini swarm MS01, and there are some network routers that have SFP ports on them. And usually you use, like, sometimes one of the ones we looked at from TP-Link had a 10 gig Ethernet and a 10 gig SFP Plus, and you use one or the other, but you can't use both at the same time. And so I either have to adapt the SFP Plus to Ethernet with a $25 adapter, or I can run SFP Plus directly out of the router and directly into the mini swarm if, in this example, the router and the device have the SFP Plus adapter. You can buy an SFP Plus adapter and plug it into your computer, but now you're spending more money instead of just using the Ethernet connection you've got. And therefore, it takes us right around in a big circle of, if it's going to cost me the same, why don't I stick with what I've already got and be standard for a home user? And if you're a business running SFP Plus, why not stick with SFP Plus? Because it's more expandable for business purposes with regards to bandwidth and maximum distance of travel on how long the cables can be. So even though you can use the business solution in the home and the home solution in the business, you'll typically find 10 gig networking. If it's in a home, which is pretty rare, it's going to be Ethernet. And if it's in a business, which is much more common, especially large businesses, it's definitely going to be SFP Plus. I started to demonstrate SFP Plus here on the channel when I got frustrated with it, and I said, this is just hokey and I don't like it. But I put all the equipment somewhere, and I'm just not sure where I put it, because I wouldn't mind just having it to show you. I thought I set it over here, but don't mind me as I step off camera. Oh, I found it. Look at me, I'm not that chaotic. Yeah, it's a live unscripted video. What do you want? So these are some 10 gig SFP Plus cables. If you've never seen one before, I'll show you what they look like. Now they make these two different ways. They have a fiber optic version and then a regular cabled version. And if you look at a normal Ethernet cable, that should look pretty familiar to all of you. And in this cable right here, this is SFP Plus, and this has a little dust jacket on it. We'll take that off. Look how big that plug is. That plug's going to go in about that far. That's how deep that jack goes. And you'll see the cable's very different. It's I'm not sure if this one's fiber optic. They have two different kinds. One is a dual, I forget the name of it. Anyway, this piece here needs a special jack to plug into, because it does go in all the way up to that point. And then it clicks in many cases, it clicks into the SFP port itself, where it plugs in. The jack has the release mechanism. in most cases, although this might also be just a pull handle. I'm not real familiar with these because I never really worked in that department. When I worked in corporate America, I was desktop support. I did sort of play around a little bit in there when the bosses weren't looking. But this is one of the adapters. And this adapter will convert your Ethernet to SFP, or I guess it's SFP to Ethernet. So this one's in a little package here. And they're only designed to run at 10 gig. So a lot of times if you're trying to connect something that's slower than that, some of these don't work. Some of these don't auto-negotiate. They're intended to run at 10 gig, or they could also run at 25 or 50, or even I think there's a 75. You can imagine just how expensive that gets for the equipment. But these adapters, some of them will auto-negotiate, some of them don't. And it's a pretty hefty little guy here. It looks like this, where this part here is going to plug into the SFP jack in the back of your switch or your router, or your PC if your PC is equipped with one. And then this side converts it so that you have your Ethernet here. And the way this releases the Ethernet is you just fold this down. You plug your cable. Well, I guess you have to plug the cable in with this up, don't you? You would plug your cable in with this up. And then I think you open this to release. I don't remember how this works. It's been such a long time. But this becomes the pull handle. Maybe that's what it is, to pull the unit out without touching it, because it gets so freaking hot. You will and can get serious burns on your fingers. And that is normal operation for these. And these are like 25 bucks a pop. Anyway, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and that's why I was interested in it. And I bought a few of them just to see if they would auto-negotiate, like they say. Some of these do say they will. And what the differences were from a $20 to a $30 unit. I didn't really see any differences. We've got something from Cable Matters. This is the other kind of cable, I think. This is called SFP plus DAC, a direct attach copper cable. DAC, direct attach copper. And it looks very similar to what I've shown you. There's no dust covers on these. And you would pull right here as your means to remove the cable. So in any event, that is SFP in a nutshell, and why it is not ideal for home users versus, let's say, business class users with expandability and expense and the amount of data that's being transferred by numerous employees simultaneously. And basically, when you see videos from enthusiasts here online talking about this stuff, I want you to understand what level they're at financially and technically. That may be interesting, you know, out of curiosity, but not necessarily something that's an ideal solution for you unless you're a home lab enthusiast. But just to introduce you to it so you know what it is if you ever see it. And then, like me, if you spend money you don't need to spend to experiment with it and then realize you just wasted all your money because, well, I can make this work. It's not worth it. I don't like it. I don't want to change all my cabling. The speed is the same. Like when I go with Ethernet, I'd rather just buy the Ethernet switch or the Ethernet 10 gig using regular 6A cables. Even if my cables are category 5, it's still cheaper to replace those with category 6A than to go through this route. Unless there's some expansion you plan on doing. And again, where this really makes sense is if you've got 50 or 500 people or 1,000 people in a building all trying to connect to servers and email and everything else that a business does. You know, when you're driving downtown, you see those big high-rise buildings. This is likely what's going on in between the walls there. So let me move this over. I'll put this back where I can't find it later. And I just wanted to get that out of the way because when we talk about networking, it's a lot like phones. If you were talking to me about telephones, I would say, well, you've got a traditional, hold on, I'm not done walking around. You've got a traditional landline phone, okay? Here we go. Let's go old school. This is a telephone. It plugs into the wall, depending on how long you're running the cable. How many people need their own phone line depends on how many phones you're going to need. This phone can be used by numerous people, just not at the same time. All right. You want one that can have different phones for different people in different rooms, then you're going to have to buy a phone for everybody. Now, later on, they came out with a version of the phone that was cordless. Same exact hookup, the base of the phone still plugs in the wall. This piece was chargeable, had an antenna you could pull out, you could talk on it. Later on, they put the antennas internal. They adjusted the frequency so you could actually walk outside and maybe even walk to your neighbor's house and still have a phone call. They were all analog signals, meaning you would hear, if the signal was weak, you'd hear static on the line. Hello, can you hear me? You'd hear that sound like white noise. And it would come and go and sometimes break up the connection. Then we went to a digital cordless phone where everything was either on or off. So your connection got rid of all the static. But if the signal was weak, it was either you're talking and words are just vanishing because the signal's weak. So all the static was gone because there's no more variation in the signal. It's a solid on or off signal. So your voice is there or it's not. Then we went to cellular phones. And of course, they've changed design and shape. And you say, well, what's the difference? Well, essentially, as far as phone calls go, portability, cost, form factor, and the ease with which it is for everybody to have their own phone, given that they can take the phone with them. A phone like this stays wherever you put it, within range of how far you can walk with it, depending on how long the cable is that you don't trip over it, or how long of a coiled wire you have on it. And, some businesses still use regular desktop phones, but they don't plug in necessarily to the phone company anymore. They plug into the internet. So they're called VoIP, voice over IP telephones. So their internet service is providing them email. Their internet service may be providing a website for customers. Their internet service may be providing them their phones, their security system, cameras. All of it is dependent on that internet service connection, which means the router and the modem have to be running optimally or the whole business goes down. That's where the work I do comes in. When somebody's at home and they have a problem with their phone or their internet, it's not a big deal. It is to them, but nobody's affected other than them. When a business has employees on payroll who cannot work and customers waiting to be helped, they're not just losing money with regards to the cost of getting the system up. They're losing money because they're not getting any work done. And how long can they do that before they're in financial ruin? So there's a lot of pressure in the IT world to get it done right, get it done fast, and get it done, well, cheap, effectively, from a business's perspective, at the very least reasonable cost. And of course, there are companies out there that take advantage. They say, these umbrellas are $5, for example, but if it's raining outside, these umbrellas are $10. I don't like doing business that way, but there's a lot in this industry that do exactly that. The cost of the umbrellas goes up if it's raining. If you decided that you weren't going to be proactive and buy an umbrella when you didn't need it so that you'd have it in the future because it was just a matter of time before it was going to rain, well, the same is true with IT support or even car maintenance or your own health. You can ignore it and you can be reactive. But when you're reactive, an emergency room visit is far more expensive, far more, than just scheduling an appointment with your doctor. So you make your decision. Nobody's going to force you, but just set your expectations accordingly. You might be more of a gambler than I am. So when we talk about all these different networking things, wireless and wired, it's no different than a phone, wireless or wired. It all works the same. It doesn't matter how it's connecting. And whether we put a card in via USB or internally, or we use one built onto the motherboard, doesn't matter. It all works the same. The only question is, how fast is it, and will it even matter? And that depends on how you use it and how many people in your building, whether it's a house or otherwise, how many people are using it at the same time? How many internet-connected devices do you have in your house? And are you experiencing any slowness? If so, the answer may be simply calling your ISP and getting a higher monthly tier bandwidth service. On the other hand, if you do that, but your equipment's 10 years old, it may actually be your equipment that can't even use what you've got now from your ISP. So this is all a financial solution, depending on what you need or want with regards to responsiveness of your internet connection. Okay. So I think I've covered that, didn't I? The first thing I want to look at here is this Fenvi. This is called a BE8800 wireless RGB network card. And this is just, sometimes I see things and I'm like, that is just the absolute dumbest thing I've ever seen. I must buy it. In this case, if I didn't have a channel, I wouldn't have bought this. But I just had to buy this for the price to make the content to show you. I know some of you out there are going to buy this. That's okay. I won't judge you. I mean, I will, but I'll keep it to myself. This is the first time I'm seeing it. So we've got the adapter here. And it's got a couple little dust jackets on the connection points for the antenna. Set that down. And we have, what is this? Oh, there's going to be a USB cable in here, and that is for engaging the Bluetooth that's built onto the Wi-Fi adapter. If we don't use this, we simply won't be able to use Bluetooth from this adapter. That's pretty universally true of all add-in wireless network cards. And these USB network cards don't have any Bluetooth at all. They're just networking only. You have to go to internal card to get to Bluetooth functionality along with your Wi-Fi. If you have a laptop that uses one of those little Wi-Fi add-in cards, or this motherboard actually uses the same, that's a third way we can add Wi-Fi to some motherboards, is through an M.2 slot. And then we provide antennas out these two holes. And then when you buy your little M.2 adapter, you then either have to buy the antennas separately, or you buy a kit where the antennas are included. Then you have to wire the antennas. They clip on no differently than a laptop that I've demonstrated. It's just a laptop Wi-Fi on a motherboard. So you can go laptop Wi-Fi or M.2 Wi-Fi, PCI-E Wi-Fi internally, or USB Wi-Fi or wired. In this case, we're going to add Wi-Fi. This is Wi-Fi only. Wired connections can be wired only as well. When it comes to like 10 gig, it's just going to be wired. There is no 10 gig wireless, not yet. I was looking to remove the plastic. That's quite often they put a plastic film over things that can get scratched. If it's a company logo or like a window, they don't want it scratched. And so there can be plastic. If you don't take the plastic off, it won't look as clear. And then over time, the plastic ages and yellows and it can wrinkle and it starts to look really ugly. This stuff, whatever this film is, it's really on there tight. And if it doesn't come off easily, I might just deal with it later. It's supposed to just peel off, but if it's been sitting for a while, it might really be stuck on there. Just feel like that little piece that came off has had a little pull tab. You know, it broke off clean. Maybe the manufacturer wants me to leave this plastic on. Either way, I want it off. I don't like it. I don't like it. And then the irony is sometimes peeling the plastic off, if you use a sharp tool, you'll scratch up what the plastic is protecting. I'm getting it. It's coming. Oh, that's much shinier now. I mean, look, obviously, if you're getting something RGB, you care if it's shiny. Why would I want to dull out the lights I'm adding? That doesn't make any sense. All right, so this is the card. And you'll see it just needs a connection that wide right there. So any connector on this motherboard that this will fit in. Will it fit there? Yep. Will it fit there? Yep. Will it fit on this little connection? Yep, it will. So even up here, we can put it there if we want to. We're just wasting this connection. Think of all of this as the ability of data to transfer throughout this. If this one right here is so little, then it can't transfer as much data. So if we have something bigger and we're blocking the ability to plug something bigger into that, the reason the thing is bigger is it requires more bandwidth, like a video card. So if we plug this where our video card would go, we're kind of wasting it because all this needs is the little one slot. But if you don't have one of these on your motherboard, you could just go to a regular full-size slot. It'll still fit. Now, if I add this little adapter here, this little plug goes here on the end. It only fits in one way. And then this is a standard USB 2 connector that'll go onto the motherboard. So all this stays internal. And we can plug it in right here. You just take this over to the edge so this card can drop down. And then we'll run this right over to the USB 2 header. This only plugs in one way. You can't get it wrong. Why is this not fully seating? I guess that's as far as it's going to go, and then the screw would hold that in place. Then you've got, yeah, there's a screw included in the box, and there's also antennas. What is this? Oh, that's a nice thing here. Not every Wi-Fi card comes with this, and it may be something you want to consider when making your purchase. Instead of just looking at price, think about what you're buying. So in this example, this is Wi-Fi 7 wireless. And this is a base to get your antennas away from the back of the computer that's going to block your antennas so that you can basically make an extension for your antennas. And by the way, these are pretty well transferable from one Wi-Fi device to another, except I'm not sure how that affects RGB on the antennas. But, you know, minus the RGB, you can take the antennas off of one Wi-Fi card and put them onto another. It should all be the same fitting. And then the antennas would go on this, and then you can move this around just like rabbit ears on a TV to get the best signal. Or you can bypass this and put the antennas on the back if your signal strength is well enough without it. And then in the box, we have our antennas, and we have a driver disc. I don't know who still has a DVD or CD drive anymore. You don't want to use this even if you do have an optical drive, because there's going to be newer drivers online. So just download your drivers online using either another computer or a wired connection or temporary connection. Or use that, but then as soon as you get online, go look for new drivers. There's some documentation, and that's pretty much it. So we'll put the antennas on here, like so. I would not use Windows default drivers, even if Windows finds the drivers on this by itself. I would still go to the manufacturer and download the latest. And just like that, we've added not any Wi-Fi, we've added Wi-Fi 7 to this build along with Bluetooth. The Bluetooth on this is, what standard is this? Not telling me. This is all about the Wi-Fi. It doesn't tell me anything about the Bluetooth. The Amazon page may actually tell us, but it's likely the latest version of Bluetooth, 5.3 or probably 5.2, whatever it is. So with that seated in there, we will fire this up. So what do? Power button right here. Turn that on. Let this get connected. Now I have an Ethernet cable plugged in, and I'm going to use that Ethernet cable to download the driver for the Wi-Fi, and then I'll unplug the Ethernet. I see a little RGB right up here on top. I don't see anything here. I don't see anything on the antennas. It was the antennas being Wi-Fi that really, in the advertisement, had me... Yeah, look at the box. It shows the antennas are lit up. So is that just marketing exaggeration, or do they actually light up? We might have to put the driver in to find out. Let's go back over to camera 1 with the wide view, and let's go look at our desktop right now, which is on camera 2. Very good. And let's see where we're at with drivers on this thing. And what we're going to do, let's go full screen over here. And yeah, there we go. Right click, on the Start button, go to Device Manager. And under Network Adapters, you'll see nothing's missing. So I'm guessing it loaded it. Yeah, it's an Intel. Even though this is made by, the card is made by a company called Fenvi, the networking wireless chip that they've embedded on the circuit board is made by Intel. And we've got an official Intel Wi-Fi 7 driver. And the Bluetooth, I don't know if it'll tell us what version of Bluetooth it is, but it's whatever version of Bluetooth comes with that particular Intel chip, the BE200. Now, it does say the driver's very old, 18 years old. How's that possible? So I would definitely look for a new driver. And the way I would do that is I'd look Intel BE200 is all I need to type into the search. And I only want to download drivers from the manufacturer. So either Fenvi or Intel, either one of those, but nobody else, no third parties. Intel BE200 driver Windows 11 should be our search. Takes us to Intel. See, Intel.com. That's the real thing, the real deal. This is all the drivers for IT administrators. What about just a wireless Bluetooth and driver? That's all we need. That was released just last month. That's obviously going to be newer than what we have or what could even possibly be on the CD that was included. So we'll download this file. Again, I understand the irony that you need a connection to do this, but the default driver that loaded is good enough to get us on Wi-Fi so that we can use the Wi-Fi to get the newer driver. That's fine too. Either way gets us there. So we'll go ahead and execute this file. You want to upgrade from 23.9 to 23.100. See, that's only a small difference, but yes, it is newer, and I definitely want the newer one. There's a reason why there's a newer driver. I don't need to know what it is. They wouldn't do that for no reason. They wouldn't pay developers to write code just because they have nothing else better to do. And we'll just do the basic install. And if you want the best experience, you always want to go with the latest driver for your video card, your network, your sound card, and of course your chipset for your motherboard. Because these can make a big difference in performance, reliability, and security, not to mention sometimes they add new features. That's it. That driver's been put in. If I right-click again over here on the Start menu, go to Device Manager, and we take another look at our network adapter, let's see if we double-click here and go to the Drivers tab, if this information has changed. It's very much changed. Now we've got June 3rd, 2024. Unless it's the other way around and it's March 6th. I don't know, depending. Intel's an American company, so I think that's June 3rd. Regardless, it's newer. That's all I care about, okay? Just want to make sure I've got hopefully the latest, but at the very least, something newer than what was at the default. Now, coming back over here. Am I going too quick for you? Let's go back to camera 1, and I'm going to unplug my Ethernet cable. And now, instead of the little screen in the corner, we're going to see a little globe. And when I click on that globe, I'm going to see any SSIDs. That's people around me, my own, etc. And by clicking on that, I will find, here it says available, hit the arrow to the right. Don't hit the antennas, that turns your Wi-Fi off and on. You want to hit the arrow to the right, and then that's going to show all of the SSIDs that are in reach of this antenna. So whether you're at a hotel, etc., you'll find your SSID, you're going to click on it and enter your password. It'll remember that password for future use. You're good to go. Enjoy your computer. That's it. That's all there is. But I only see, first of all, I don't see RGB on the antennas. This feels like false advertising to me. All I see is RGB right up here on top. Just a little tiny like thing that says Wi-Fi 7 that's going to face the glass window of your case. I see some I see some colors here out the back. I can do this without knocking everything down. But it's not extending to the antennas. There's no glow coming out of these. Unless they've got a little light shooting through here that can only be visible without the stand, but that's not how they show it in the picture. Let's just try it to see. I don't think it's going to light up. Surprise me. I'm not quite sure if you see the reflection of light there against my fingers. That's coming out of these two holes that I think are status indicators. But I don't believe that these are, ooh, that makes me nervous how wobbly that is. I don't believe those are Wi-Fi antenna. RGB. I would think the LED lights would interfere with the signal, ironically, and give you a weaker signal, which doesn't make any sense if you're buying the most powerful Wi-Fi card on the market for consumers. They're just regular black antennas. So the only part that's Wi-Fi is right up here. Let me see if I can show that to you. Let me go back over to camera 1 here for a minute. I'm going to try a little experiment. I needed to test this out anyway. We'll grab the close-up camera. I don't know if this is worth extra money to pay for this RGB, but you're only going to see this on a case that has a glass window, and even then you might not even notice it. It's so tiny. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to borrow this network cable right here, or not network cable, this video output, and connect it to this little camera to give you a close-up. And I'll hold it this way so you could see it the way I see it. Let's see if that works. Well, that did not work. What am I missing here? Did I not have the cable plugged in all the way? Typical Carey. Here, will you hold that for me?
Yeah.
Put you to work. And let me see if we're getting a signal out of this. That, I think, is camera 2. Oh, it's saying no signal. Let me right-click on, is it not camera 2? I'm pretty sure. This camera 3 is our close-up. Camera 2 should be that camera you're holding. And camera 1 is our main. Oh, things are getting confusing. If we go to configure video, it's saying it's getting no signal out of this. So let me borrow this for a second. And bear with me, folks, for just a second here. In the menu, I should be able to choose my HDMI output settings to different resolution. And I'm going to unplug my cable and plug it back in just to make sure we're all the way in there. Yeah, it says no signal. How weird is that? I'm going to try one other thing before I give up on this, because this is stuff we have to really do off camera. See if we get a signal that way.
No way. Doesn't put out light. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah. I don't understand why I'm not getting a signal. Hold this for just a second. I just want to try one other thing. Sometimes I just don't plug cables in all the way. I'm wondering if that's what I've done here. This camera was working before, so what have I done? HDMI resolution, I want that on 2160. And nothing's happening. Oh, okay, we got 2160. And then I want to drop my frames per second to 24. And I think we're still in business. I think. This is what happens in the control room when you're watching live TV. Should be a way for me to hit OK, but maybe that's all I need.
The live studio audience.
Oh, I guess I made it. All right. Didn't realize we were on this camera the whole time. So here, let me hand it to you. Let me go back to our menu. Escape. Where's my escape button? Oh, it just went off again. What just happened? Why did it go off? What the heck? Okay, now it's back on again. Menu. Okay. I think I've got a loose cable. Hold on to that. And let's give this a second. I don't know why it's acting up. Seems like a lot of effort to go through to show them some. This is why I don't like RGB. Like, it's just a lot of effort for a little tiny stupid thing that makes no difference in performance. Let me just take another look at the camera. I don't know why it keeps alternating between working and not working. I'm going to turn it off and back on again now that I've got the HDMI settings dialed in. Let's see if the signal comes back. Gosh, that is weird. HDMI resolution. How about info display? Will it show me that? No. Off. What if we drop it to 1080? Will that be any happier? Nope. And what if we go to, let's keep it on auto resolution. We'll go back. Isn't this exciting to watch? I wonder if I have a bad cable. Let me switch back over temporarily. Let's see, configure video. Yeah, it says no signal. I'm thinking I got a bad cable here. So here's what I'm going to do. Just because it's bugging me so much. I don't know, were we on camera one the whole time? I don't know. I'm going to change this cable. Hold that. And let me just try something here. Hold that. It was working when I tested it. We'll just edit this out in post. Sure we will.
Right.
Real struggles of a content creator. Going live worldwide. No pressure, Carey. This is just an adapter to go from HDMI to micro. That doesn't matter. We're not Wi-Fi on the camera. Yeah, so I don't know if the feed I saw, I don't think they were seeing it. Does that work? Hey, that's working. So now, without making everybody sick, oh, it just lost it again. What a bizarre behavior. Oh, there it's back. There's our RGB. Just put it right here before it goes out. Quick. Oh no, too late. Maybe just wiggle the cable. Wow, that is absolutely the strangest behavior we've ever witnessed. It is just not wanting to cooperate. Yeah, well, that's okay. Oh, wait, you're on now. Okay, there's your RGB. And it's not even moving. Like, it's just permanently lit. I think that's blue, right? The W is blue. Oh, no, it is changing. Okay.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
So you want one?
That is really dumb.
That's the only RGB.
Really,
I
really
thought
dumb.
the antennas, look, on the box, it shows those antennas are RGB. Gosh darn it, you just lost the signal again.
Oh.
Anyway,
Well,
enough of that nonsense. Wait, now it's working. So there's the box. The box clearly shows RGB on the antennas.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
False advertising.
Oh, I'm going to leave a review on Amazon. You watch. Okay, now we'll go back to camera one.
There's no way those antennas can provide any kind of light.
And again,
whatsoever.
my thought, the reason why I ordered it is I thought, don't those LEDs
well, that would be something I'd
interfere?
be like, ooh, let's put it in.
Don't they interfere with the signal strength? And I would think that they would. So I don't know. It's really bizarre.
And my, desire for fluff.
Yeah, I know.
Once in a while, that would be cool. But that is false advertising right there.
Absolutely. And it's an expensive card. It's like a $100 card. Somewhere close to $100. So anyway, glad we got to share that experience together. You saw that too, right? It wasn't just me. And then, but I will say, as far as a Wi-Fi card goes, something that comes with a base, preferably if it's magnetic. This one feels very lightweight. They need to put some lead or something in these to make them heavier, to give them a little weight. The only time you'd want it light is if it were, attaching magnetically to the side and gravity might pull it down. This one's very light and cheap. So even if you set it on top of your computer, it's going to get knocked around. It may even just vibrate off to the side on its own without touching it. It's that just cheap hollow plastic. Or you can put the antennas directly on the back. The card itself, being Intel based, is a 100% good card. I do recommend Fenvi in general for Wi-Fi cards. But that being said, I just want you to have proper expectations. If you want to order a Wi-Fi 7 card, you can get it a little cheaper without the RGB, also from the same company, Fenvi. Also other manufacturers like Realtek and others or based chips are available from other manufacturers. So all of that's to keep in consideration. I'll worry about what's going on with my handheld camera. That's just a configuration or maintenance thing I got to deal with offline. So yeah, stickers. Anyway, let me just move that over here. And then this is all junk. That's the screw. Okay, with that out of the way, I don't know what we need that for. This is garbage. Do you guys have any questions for me so far? Anything about networking you want to know? This is the time to ask. I'm going to take a little break for myself before we move on to anything else. I don't think I can really test this RAM. I'm not expecting anything different from any other RAM, quite honestly. It's white, it's RGB, it's made by a different company instead of perhaps G-Skill or Crucial or Team Group. This is Silicon Power. I think Silicon Power in general has offered a better value with the same warranty, and in many times you get a better, not a better product. You basically get the same product, but it may be running at a faster speed for the same or less money than competitors. It may be worth something to consider, and if you've got any experience with Silicon Power products, whether it's this product or a product from 10 years ago, we'd love it for you to share your experience with us for the benefit of the rest of us, so we can kind of establish a consensus, if you agree with me or not, that they're a quality manufacturer, lesser known, and have to charge less to entice you to buy them because you just don't know who they are, and that's their incentive against better known brands. Their incentive for you to choose them. Then of course we'll get to the Wi-Fi adapters. They're pretty straightforward. You're going to plug them in, you're going to download the driver for them. Never use the default driver if there is one. I cannot emphasize that enough on networking products. Whatever networking card you're using now, if you're on a Windows-based computer, x86, you know, AMD, Intel-based desktop, laptop, make sure you've got the latest wireless or wired driver, whatever you're using. If you're on a tablet, if you're on an ARM-based computer, in that case, it takes care of itself, like with Android and stuff like that, iOS, all that takes care of itself. Okay, so let's see what we're saying in the chat room. Our friend Frankie B with a $5 super chat. Right on. Thank you, Frankie. Frankie's a super member here. Bernard C. was just having to leave, but he's saying goodbye on his way out, and he'll come back and watch the replay later. Thanks for popping in and joining us, saying hello, Bernard. Appreciate your time hanging out with us today. Mortant 1210 says hello, welcome in. Stu says the Wi-Fi is so strong it's cutting out the HDMI cable connection. If only that were possible. There's our friend Mitch Morrison joining us. Says hello. Andy Kane wants to know if the SPS adapter I showed earlier, was that for a single mode fiber? The adapters, pretty much, as far as I know, they adapt SFP plus to Ethernet. With regards to whether or not it's for, what was the question? Dual mode? I think that has to be the cable, the SFP cable, not the adapter. But I could be wrong. I don't know much about SFP plus. Technically, it's I keep calling it SFP, but SFP is old. Anything SFP today would be SFP plus. So I'm just kind of assuming we're all on that same page, but I should be using the proper name, the proper terminology. The reason I don't is because I'm not familiar with it. I'm not gonna pretend I am. and I don't want to become familiar with it, because as I was becoming familiar with it, I learned that I don't want to become familiar with it any further. So if you have any SFP Plus questions, you'd be best off asking somebody who knows. How about that? It's not my wheelhouse, and I never want it to be my wheelhouse. I do not like it, Sam. I am. I'm going to stick with Ethernet. It's just universal and ubiquitous. The only time you're going to deal with SFP Plus is going to be in a business environment or a home lab. And there aren't as many home labs as there are business environments by far. So the likelihood of you having this at home is, well, your own punishment. What do you got to say?
My life was built on SFP, and if you want to know anything about that, please direct your questions to me, either via the forum or.
So Mara has a business. What was your job type?
I was a network engineer.
You were a network engineer for a big major corporation.
Systems administrator.
I guess it wouldn't be a small major corporation.
For over 20 years. Yeah.
And so you worked with SFP.
Correct.
It was like a regular everyday thing for you,
Correct.
like a cup of coffee. Yeah, for me, it's this weird exotic connector that has all of these conditions and heat.
Was multi-mode or.
Oh, but it's not on the adapter, is it? Isn't that just? It is on the adapter. So these adapters I purchased that are on the shelf, do they say if they're multi-mode or single mode?
Well, those are SFP Plus, so they will convert to Ethernet.
Right. He's asking if those adapters converting to Ethernet are single mode or double.
They should do single mode.
Would there be any benefit if you're converting it to Ethernet? Like if you're going to do the dual mode, wouldn't you want an SFP Plus cable?
It depends on the length. It depends on how far you're going.
Distance of the cable.
Correct.
Okay. So if you're going, I'm trying to think what the distance was on 10 gig. It may not be the full 100 meters.
It's not.
Maybe it's 100 feet. It's still pretty far for anybody in a house. But when you're working in a business, you may need to run that, and likely from floor to floor.
Yeah. So again, people can use the forums or email, and if they're looking for questions.
Forums or email. Yes, we have a new forum up, and let me show that to you. We're going to open up a new browser here and go over to our window capture. See if that works. There it is. And just up here, we'll type in CareyHolzman boards.net. That's the name of the website. Enter. And everybody is welcome to sign in, create a free account, register your account. There's no charge, nor do we ever plan on charging or advertising on this platform. As of now, we're just trying to give all of our viewers a place to go to talk to each other by leaving messages back and forth, public messages. There's also the ability, I'm sure, to send private messages, but this is really intended for public discussion, just like live chat, except it's separated into threads. So if we click on general discussion, you can see some of the threads, people asking for help, people asking about Digital Forensics Corp. I don't know what this is. Mark Leibowitz, who runs a computer repair shop in Chicago or in the Chicago area, is leaving a question. This is a perfect example of a way to use this board. But another way to use this would be to just simply say hello and engage in conversation of any topic that you guys share. It doesn't have to be computers. It could be drones for all I care. What I want to see is the community continue to develop without me as well as with me. And for that reason, Mara and I do pop in from time to time and join in on those conversations. And other conversations, we just leave you guys alone. So feel free to join in. It is completely free. You're all welcome. And invited guests of the forum, you're all consider yourself invited guests. And let us know a little bit about yourself if you feel comfortable letting us know your name. Maybe let us know what got you interested in computers. Maybe let us know what part of the world you watch us from. Or say hello or reply to any other messages from viewers whose names you might recommend. Encourage that very much. And of course, our channel email. Now that's a more private way to reach us regarding business questions. How much is this? Or could you build me that? And you will email us at this email address right here. And that's available for everybody. If you do not get a response from us within 24 hours, we likely never got your email. Always check your spelling. People are constantly reversing E's and A's and misspelling things. I can't tell you how many times people are like, Gary, I've been watching your channel for 15 years. Really? Then you got to know my name's not Gary. I mean, it's right there on the below every video is my name. And time again, I don't know if they're doing that intentionally because they think my name is Gary, or if they're typing it out, or if they're using text-to-speech and they're not proofreading. Either way, it's more the same. It doesn't surprise me anymore. Likewise, sometimes people say, I've tried emailing you, they'll tell us in the chat, and I'm not getting a response. And then you say, well, what email did you send it to? And then come to find out they've been misspelling it or using an older email address. If you want a response, you've got to use that email address, and you've got to type it exactly the way you see it. That's kind of how email works. Upper and lowercase don't matter. You just have to get the spelling right. Upper and lowercase only matter for passwords. But when it comes to email addresses, you don't have to worry about upper or lowercase. It's not like there's got to be a showcase create lowercase that's different from a showcase create. That's not how email works. Okay, so if you enjoy this type of content and you want to see more content like it, please hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. The thumbs up is the like button. And by clicking that, it lets us know, that you like this kind of content and you want to see more like it. The YouTube algorithm, nobody knows how that works. There's no promise that hitting the like button is going to benefit us in any way with the YouTube algorithm. What the algorithm's actually looking at, to my understanding and experience from what I've played around with and the results I've seen over the years, consistently, is that when more people are watching a video, the YouTube algorithm is more likely to recommend it. That's it. Specifically of a particular nature. If you're watching tech videos and you've watched 2 or 3 of them, YouTube's going to recommend more tech videos to you based on how popular other tech videos are. It's really that simple. There are other supposed analytics that the algorithm is always adjusting, so you can never quite figure it out. But overall, the rule of thumb is whatever viewers are watching is what the algorithm is going to recommend to other viewers. So the like button is really for the creator to say, okay, people thumbs that down or didn't click the like button. If you're not clicking the like button, I have to assume, based on the number of views versus the number of likes, that's not content you prefer. If you do click the like button, you're confirming to me you want to see more gadget-related content or engagement in live chat. You can also tell me in the comments what you personally prefer without being offensive. Your content is crap. Why can't you make the content I want? I don't know, because you're not paying for it. If, on the other hand, you are paying for it, well, that's a different story. But if we have a bunch of people saying, hey, I would like to see you do a review of X or you build Y. It starts with one person saying it. And if a second person, third person, fourth person start echoing that, yeah, we have to start considering this is what people want. But it has to start with somebody explaining their preference. I would like to see more router reviews. Okay. Anybody else or just you? So if you don't leave a comment, then what you're telling me as a creator is you don't care. Just do whatever you want to do. I enjoy watching you, whatever you're doing. That may be your attitude. Or you'd like to get my reaction on something. Maybe I feel like I shouldn't do it because it's already been done to death. But sometimes I get viewers that say, nobody does it like you do. So I'd like to see your reaction or your response or your thoughts, hear your thoughts about a particular product that everybody's talking about. I tend to shy away from that because, like, why am I talking about what everybody else is talking about? I'd rather showcase weird stuff or bring up points that people may not be aware of. There is a, in that regard, it just occurred to me, when you're using the RAM, when Windows, let's say Windows 11, is using your RAM, it's compressing your RAM. It's trying to make the most out of your RAM. And if you go bring up your task manager, let's go back to the desktop here. This is best demonstrated. come over here, and what I'm going to do is hit Control-Alt-Delete. Let's see, I don't know if that's going to appear. Oh, you know what? Let's use this. I'm realizing the loop of logic I've got here. Let me jump back over to camera 1. Let's go to this machine. That way I can hit Control-Alt-Delete and I don't have to worry about OBS not capturing it. That button there. Yeah, so I hit Control-Alt-Delete and go to Task Manager. Okay. This is just a little something to consider that's not going to be for all of you, but it may be something you want to shy away from or something you want to explore. The second button here, this is our Performance tab, and under Memory, we can see that in use, right here, it says the memory is compressed. Now this machine has a total of 64 gigs. We're only using 6 gigs of RAM. I mean, it's crazy. When people are installing 64 gigs of RAM, they're likely never going to use it. Most people. And anything above that is usually a waste of money because you're just not using it. You might as well buy a bunch of other stuff you're not using. Go to the grocery store, buy some food you're not going to eat. It's the same thing. You're just wasting money. But if you have a lot of RAM, more than you're using, there's no sense compressing it. And you can disable that compression. Now, this could cause system crashes, and there could be consequences depending on how you use your computer and the way the software is written. But if we just type in disable memory compression, Windows 11, you'll find not connected to the internet. I unplugged my Ethernet cable, didn't I? And I never set up the Wi-Fi to be connected. My bad. Live video. What do you want? You think this is a fake live video? All right, now to disable memory compression in Windows 11, you can open PowerShell and type this command in. All right, and then there's a way to re-enable it if you want to. So to demonstrate that, we'll type in PowerShell, and I don't have to type the whole thing in. It pops up as a suggestion up here, and right over here it says Run as Administrator. Sure, yeah. Okay. Then it wants me to type in disable memory management agent -MC without the quotes. So I'll just highlight and Control-C to copy that. Come back over to our PowerShell, press Control-V to paste it, and hit Enter. Now for this change to take effect, we do have to reboot the machine. So I'll type exit, and we'll restart. Now look, if you're running 16 gigs or less of RAM, you should not be doing this. If you have more than 32 gigs of RAM, you might consider it. The idea is that if you've got all of this RAM, and bear with us as the Elgato says no signal as the machine reboots, if you've got 64 gigs or more of RAM, I don't see any point in having your processor do the extra work of compression and decompression. Even though you probably won't notice any difference in speed, it is adding to the resources your computer's using to constantly compress and decompress the RAM in order to make the most out of the RAM you have. But if you've got more RAM than you're using, then why compress it? It doesn't make any sense. It'd be nice to see Windows auto-adjust this. But by default, that's how Windows installs. So if we go back to the task manager right here, so Control-Alt-Delete or right-click on the Start button, go to that second box right there. Now, oh, it's still compressed. It's not supposed to be compressed anymore. Did I turn it off or did I turn it on? Let's go back one more time and let's say disable. Try this again. Memory compression, Windows 11, memory compression, able or disable at How to Geek. And it says what it is, how to check. Okay. This get MM agent tells you the status. We scroll down, how to turn it on or off. Go into PowerShell, okay. Keep scrolling. A lot of ads. Okay, to disable memory compression. Isn't that what we typed? Or no? That's what we want to type right there. So just to make sure, I'm going to do it again. If everything goes smoothly, you will not see any confirmation. You'll simply be returned to the command line, which is what it did. So let me just copy this right here. Right click, copy. Go to PowerShell. Run it as an administrator. Yes. And right click again. Disable. Yeah. Enter. Oh, that one's taking a little longer. Type exit. We'll get out of this. And let's reboot again and see if it disabled it. Now this is all about performance. This is for those of you who have more RAM than you're using, and you want to free up whatever processing time your CPU is using to constantly compress and decompress behind the scenes. It's been doing this the whole time, by the way. I'm just making you aware of it. It's not necessarily a bad thing. On the other hand, if you're really relying on your swap file because you don't have a lot of RAM, this is the worst thing you can do. You'll be slowing your computer down. So it's always safer to leave it at the defaults. So for those of you looking to do a little performance tweaking and to experiment with it to see if you notice any difference, I'd be interested in your feedback. And for the rest of you, don't do this. Okay, I'm going to right click on the start button, go back to the task manager and back over to the performance. And are we no, it's still compressing. That is not working. Isn't that interesting? You look one more time. I know for a fact I typed it in right this time. Disable memory compression Windows 11, and let's go a little further down. There's probably a Microsoft link. This is 11 forum, Windows report. You could study up on this. This is from 2023. There's a couple of YouTube videos, but we should see a Microsoft forum, an official forum, right? That's probably going to tell you not to do it, but then they'll still talk about it a little more on an official way. There's a Reddit discussion. And if you're not aware of this happening, my main goal here is to make you aware of it and for you individually to decide if that's something you choose to explore. You can always undo it. You can always create a system restore point that you can restore to in a worst case if everything's blue screening or crashing. But again, if you have a lot of memory, you're probably not using it, and therefore you don't need the compression on. I'm a little stumped. I really thought that was going to work. And I'm not seeing, oh here, Microsoft Community, Windows 11 standby and compression. Now this is different from an administrator PowerShell. This has, instead of MC, it's actually spelling out memory compression. Now that's pretty clear to me. We're going to try it this way to see if that works. So PowerShell, whoops, I didn't run it in administrator mode. Try that again. PowerShell, run as administrator, yes. Control V, enter. Okay, I don't expect that this happens without a restart, but let me just check the task manager to see if the memory is compressed right now before I restart. It is compressed, that's what I expect. So now let's restart. And we'll look one more time. After that, I'll have to research it more. I was just, this came up yesterday. I was looking at something. And this may be a feature that I want to enable or disable with a checkbox in the Windows 11 optimization tool that we're working on. But I don't know if it's beneficial or if it's mostly going to cause more harm than good. So if you guys decide that you want to do this and experiment with it and tell me if you like it or dislike it, or if you don't notice any difference, I would appreciate your feedback, as it'll help me decide if it's something I want to include. But first I got to figure out how to make it work, because maybe the instructions are old or have been changed because of an update from Windows, for Microsoft. Let me just look one last time. I'm not going to spend too much more time on it on a live video. It's still compressing the RAM. So there's something I'm missing somewhere. I'm not sure where it is. But there's our total memory installed right up here, 64 gigs. And we're only using 5 gigs. That's all we're using at the desktop. And even if we open a browser and we do stuff, and open numerous tabs and go back and look at our memory usage, it still hasn't gone up. I mean, if we had 16 gigs of RAM in this, we'd still be good. If we had 32, we'd likely never use all 32. And with 64, it's going to take either some specialty applications or some really intense software, maybe some Adobe software, something like that, to really utilize this. And even then, probably we're not hitting anywhere close to 64. So in that way, it doesn't make any sense that I'm spending additional resources on my CPU to continually compress it and decompress it. So if you have any experience with it already, let me know in the chat what your thoughts are. I think maybe the command has changed with Windows updates. That's the only thing I can imagine. I've tried it 3 different ways. It's not working. John William wants to know, does it matter if you have a dedicated GPU for memory compression? The memory compression is strictly, as far as I know, for the system RAM and not for the GPU RAM. That's a different beast. I do believe the GPU drivers control the GPU RAM and the Windows drivers control the RAM used in Windows. That's my understanding of it. OnDog says, what if you try the command line instead of PowerShell? I mean, we could try. You have 0 compressed. Oh, am I reading it wrong? Let me take a look one more time. Let's go back. Maybe I'm just going too quickly for my own good. Go back. That's not what I want. I want this one. There we go. It helps when I select the right input. I'm expecting it to say compressed or uncompressed, and apparently that's not how it works. Let's go back to Task Manager. And I appreciate the chat room for pointing this detail out. It says in use compressed. Oh, I see what you guys are saying. I'm reading it wrong. I'm expecting it to say in use uncompressed. But what it's saying is in use is 4.9 gigs, and in parentheses 0 meg, and in parentheses above it, it says compressed. Let's try it the other way. Let's turn it back on again. It does seem faster, but it might be a placebo. Enable memory compression, Windows 11, memory compression. Windows 11. Do specify if it's Windows 10 or 11. To enable it, so I guess -MC or spelling out memory compression effectively is the same thing. So if we highlight that, now remember, we don't want the quotation marks. I'll copy it because that's just the easy way to do it. We'll go back to PowerShell, run it as administrator. All right, this is working like I thought it would. And then Control V and then backspace to get rid of that quote. And enter. That should turn it back on. It's just that easy. And nothing in my Windows 10 optimization tool is anything that you can't just type in a command line, right? My optimization tool is there to automate and make faster all of the changes. It doesn't do anything proprietary. It's only using Microsoft options. It's not going outside of Microsoft recommendations, which a lot of tune-up utilities do, and why I don't recommend tune-up utilities other than what's included with Windows. Now, when we reboot here again, we'll check the task manager and see if we see how much memory is compressed. My mistake, and that's because the way Windows works, it's not an all or nothing. It's not everything's getting compressed or nothing is getting compressed. It's either some things are getting compressed that are compressible, or nothing's getting compressed. So now I understand that it functions that way. I was not aware of that. I've learned something new today because I only really started exploring this yesterday. It's never come up before. But with RAM being so cheap now, and so many people having way too much RAM, I'm trying to think of ways that we can utilize it. And so here it's still showing 0 compressed. I'm wondering as we start to open applications and tabs, if any of this then becomes compressed. Still saying 0 here. So that's where the status comes in, right? Did we actually re-enable compression or not? And that's why when I initially looked for the, disabling memory compression, one of the websites we clicked on, maybe it was How to Geek, showed us how to get the status instead of guessing, because not everything is compressible. Like a JPEG file is already compressed, right? You can't put that in a zip file and think you've shrunken it down. It's already shrunk down. Putting in a zip file may actually make the file bigger. Now, if we look, compresses located in RAM, and if I read all this, I probably would have expected more properly what to expect. But get agent. So that's it says if the result is true, the feature is enabled. If it says false, it's disabled. So get agent. So we'll run PowerShell as an administrator. Can't copy out of a photo. Get agent. Enter. True or false? It's not recognized. Yeah, that's why I'm wondering if a Windows update has changed this. Or is there no space in it? Is that the reason why it's happening? Let me try it again without the space. Yeah, so it's all one line with no spaces. And it's telling us here, because you get a number of display options here, prefetching, launch, files, memory compression is true, and true means it is enabled, right? That's what they said. Yeah, that line, memory compression, true. If it says true, then the feature is enabled. All right, so even though the feature is enabled, that doesn't necessarily mean it is actually compressing anything. Once again, it's going to depend on whether or not it can compress the software that you're running, the RAM requirements. If you're gaming, let's just say, for example, and you want better gaming performance, you might want to turn that compression off. Or it could make the game crash. So that's why I'm curious in your feedback. Again, thank you to the chat room for pointing that discrepancy that's in the parentheses to what's compressed. I was expecting it to say uncompressed up here, but that's not how the engineers in their wisdom have laid it out. I wish there was a grid or something where compressed was directly over the number in parentheses, but you're just supposed to know what's in parentheses below is explained in what's in parentheses above. Okay, that sorts that mess. I'm so glad I brought that up. See, I don't know everything, but now I know a little bit more than I did, and hopefully we learn together. None of us were born knowing any of this. And based on my experience, sometimes my experience holds me back because I'm used to things being done a certain way, and they've changed how it's done. In fact, prior versions of Windows, to my knowledge, didn't have a compression option. So, if you go back far enough, this was mostly like DOS and stuff and how we used to do this. We also used to use RAM disks. Like, what if we created a RAM disk with all the extra RAM we had? But the point of that is your swap file. There's no reason with NVMe drives being as fast as they are to create a RAM disk anymore. The idea is that we take a portion of the RAM we're not using and we make a virtual drive letter E, let's just say. And we tell Windows, take all my temp files and put them on drive letter E. So it's writing much faster, and every time I reboot, E gets cleared out. A genius idea, right? Back in the DOS days, boy, did that make a difference in how fast your system goes. And today, while there still are RAM disk applications, a lot of them are no longer compatible with the latest version of Windows 11 using some virtual disk manager or something it causes systems to crash. And even when you get it working, you'll probably not see any performance difference because Windows is kind of automating all that with the speed of solid state drives, NVMe drives. It's so fast now, you don't need a RAM disk anymore. But if you still insist on using one, do your research. It's a great way that you could, say you've got 128 gigs of RAM, you could use it for something you might feel is useful, even if it doesn't really have any practical performance difference. Again, if you have experience with that, if you're using the latest Windows 11 24H2 with a RAM disk that isn't causing your applications to crash, please share your experience with us in the chat. Be it stay away, or everybody should be doing this, or whatever your personal thoughts are. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and if you are using one, do you like it? What do you like about it? And which one are you using that's currently compatible? Alex in the chat and Austin in the chat mentioned, oh, and Stan also mentioned don't put the space in it. I got there on my own, but thank you. I should have looked at the chat earlier. When I go full screen like that, I cannot see the chat. That's why I used to have a second monitor for that. You could have saved me a couple minutes, but I appreciate your feedback. That's why I tell people, look to our chat. Don't just look to me if you're having technical questions, because we have so many knowledgeable people in our chat room. They may be likely to see the question and answer it before I even get to it or even see it. And that includes our message boards too. Don't dismiss the quality of knowledge coming from our community. Very, very smart people in there. Most of them, in fact, probably much smarter than me. Wayne Ellison joins us and says hello. Mats Olof is saying good evening. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Mats Olof. Good to see you again. K-True Michael says, if the Windows Memory Manager detects low memory, it tries to compress unused pages of memory instead of writing them to a paging file on disk to free up RAM or other processes. Again, negating the need for a RAM disk. So where this is of particular interest is from gamers, right? They're always looking to get another extra frames per second. And again, if we go, let me go full screen over here. Right click, oh, come on. Full screen. We right click on the start button or press Control-Alt-Delete, go to Task Manager, click that second icon from the top and see how much memory you're using. Do you have too much RAM? Load your computer up after you've been using it for a few hours and just randomly check and see what's available. Because if you have more than 16 gigs available and you've got everything loaded up the way you use it for the last couple hours, you're just not using it. Like I said, you might as well go to the store, buy some bananas, put them on the counter, in 2 weeks throw them in the garbage. The only difference is you're not throwing it away, you're ignoring it. You're buying it, you're ignoring it, you're not using it, so why do you have it? You wasted your money. Now, if you think, well, I'm future-proofing, you're probably not. And the reason I say that is we've gone from DDR to DDR2 to DDR3 to DDR4, DDR5. Likely, if you are that powerful of a user, you will likely upgrade your RAM to a new RAM technology, like from DDR4 to DDR5, long before you'll take advantage of the extra RAM you bought. At whatever prices you paid, remember, it's always getting cheaper. If you wait until you need it and then buy it, your money will be better value for what you're getting in return. But if you're buying it today, just in case you might need it tomorrow, you're paying more for it and may never need it. Now, in the case of a fire extinguisher or an umbrella, different story. In the case of RAM, the worst that happens is your system performance is degraded. Your system doesn't crash if you don't. If you're utilizing every bit of RAM you've got, adding more RAM will add performance. But if you're not even using what you have, adding more RAM does nothing but empty your wallet. More is not always better. Now, if you don't mind spending the money because it makes you feel good to see the bigger number, I can show you how sector editing works, and we can change the hexadecimals in the code and make it show you any number you want. You can go on AliExpress or even on Temu and you can buy a 32 terabyte flash drive for $15 because it's not a 32 terabyte flash drive. It's more of a 16 megabyte flash drive, and they've changed the coding to report 32. But if that makes you feel better, it's not actually what's in it. Sometimes people get caught up in seeing numbers, and they put a value on these numbers greater than the value of what it's actually doing. And if that's what you want to do, I mean, there's nothing illegal about it, but I can't sell that to my customers. What kind of a technician would I be if I recommended to customers they buy things they don't need, to spend money they don't need to spend, to get no return on that investment? I probably won't be able to pull the wool over the eyes for a customer for too long before they realize nothing other than our budget has changed. Our budget has grown, but nothing has improved. So I think it's time we find another tech. That's how I would expect to have that conversation if I were the one that somebody was. If a mechanic tells me to change some part out in my car and there's nothing wrong with it, why would I do that? On the other hand, if it's regular maintenance like an oil change, we want to change that at regular intervals to prevent a problem. So again, there's not this one blanket over everything that applies to, absolute. It depends what it is. If I have a full tank of gas in my car, but my car's been sitting for 3 months, why did I spend all that money on a tank of gas that over time becomes not diluted, it becomes, it gets like water in the tank. Sometimes will evaporate. If you have an old can of gas laying around that you've had for 3 or 4 years, you might find out that it's so expired, it doesn't ignite right, or the engine, like you're putting in a lawnmower, it doesn't start because the gas is too old. And a couple of years ago, the gas might have been more expensive, whereas today we're not in one of those periods. Throughout our lives, we've seen the price of gasoline or petrol go up and down, up and down. So if you bought it when it was cheap, it may not be considered cheap by today's standards. And then when you went to use it, it's gone bad. So for the most part, what I recommend to my clients is the same thing I recommend to you guys. Buy what you need today. And then if it's not enough, whenever you discover that, then buy what it is that's not enough. Not enough storage. Storage isn't fast enough. The system's not running fast enough because you're using all your RAM. Then go get some more RAM. But to try and anticipate what your needs are without really knowing, or you're saying, I'm trying to anticipate what my needs are going to be next year, you're probably not going to be accurate on that. And if you actually wait until you need it, you'll spend less and get more than by today's standards. So that's why future-proofing in tech is just something people with money do. If you're future-proofing with tech because you have the money, there's a chance you may not have the money next year because you spent it all. Anyway, it's just a perspective I'm sharing with you for consideration. Let me look back at the chat. We're going to wrap it up. We're just at about 2 hours. Once again, when it comes to these USB adapters, you simply plug them in and load the driver. I would not use the drivers included. Sometimes the drivers aren't included, and I think it's actually beneficial if they don't include the drivers to force you to go get the driver. Now, we can get the driver from IOCrest and we can get the driver from WAVLINK, or once we plug it in, we see who actually makes the chip for WAVLINK and who makes the chip for IOCrest. All the 10 gig adapters are all going to be made by Marvell. Just type in 10 gig Marvell driver into Google. Use whatever you've got now to download that driver before you install this, or use a second computer and be ready. Put it on a flash drive, copy it over, whatever. Download it first onto the, like I could download this driver now while I'm plugged in, and then install this and use the downloaded driver. Do it the other way around. Get the driver first, then use this. On the other hand, if the computer you want to plug this into has no internet access without this, use a different computer. Get the driver, put it on a flash drive, sneaker net, walk it over, plug it in, copy the driver over, unplug the flash drive, then plug your USB device in, and then point it to the driver you just downloaded. You're done. It's all free. You just do it in the right order, makes your life so much more stress-free, less frustrating. You want to ask me how I know? Go ahead, I dare you. All right, let's see, what do we have here in the chat? John Paul Bacon mentions you can add an additive called gas stabilizer to an old, if you're going to be storing fuel, petrol, gas. That's true. That is true. You can add a stabilizer, which also means spending more money. That makes sense if you have like an emergency generator. Like in California fires in Los Angeles, there were some news stories of somebody that had a Honda-powered diesel, I think, generator. And you would put a fuel additive in that because a generator may not be something you use very often, but when you need it, right? And this generator was able to provide power to run a pump. So even though they had no water and they had no electricity, the guy had a pool, and the generator powered the pump that used the pool water to feed a sprinkler system that kept his house from burning down. And now, because that made the news, everybody wants to order one of these little contraptions he's created to connect to that generator. And Honda, the maker of that specific generator, is selling out of units. But yes, that would be an example where you would add fuel to that to future-proof. In other words, I don't know when I might ever use this generator or why. So you definitely want to put fuel in it as much as it'll take so the generator will last as long as possible if your power goes out for whatever reason. And then you would add a fuel stabilizer to that to ensure that it'll start in 2 or 3 years if that's how long it sits before you actually need it, or potentially longer than that, which is different. That's a completely different preparation, being proactive versus just buying a bunch of stuff you're not using just to see big numbers on your screen. Either way, it's your money. I just want you to have reasonable expectations on what to expect in return. You might just be wasting your money with the advancement of technology, whereas a generator from 1950 is still going to pretty much run the same way it ran. The job of a generator is still the same. They're just smaller, more portable, more efficient today than they were in the 50s. Nonetheless, that's a very different thing to be prepared for than computer RAM that's always changing, right? From DDR2, DDR3, DDR4, DDR5. There'll be a DDR6 and a DDR7, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, they also have that CAM memory, which never really took off. I don't think it ever will, but boy, we sure talked a lot about that, didn't we? Had people in the chat so excited. Like, this is dumb. I would be shocked if it ever took off. It's been a year or 2 years, and still, well, Dell's got a laptop that uses it. Great. So now you have a proprietary RAM in some single laptop that nobody else is really using, or very few are using. Good luck finding it. Without the mass production, the price is going to remain high. It takes a lot of production to bring that price per unit down. Does it feel superior because you paid more? I don't get it. On the other hand, you never quite know. Sometimes things take off and get popular that are dumb, like RGB. Waste of money. But be that as it may, let's take a look here in the chat and wrap it up for today. I just want to address any final comments, questions. We have a super chat from Mark Gaines of 20 pounds. Right on. Thank you, Mark. Carey, he says, the Leon Lee case in yesterday's stream is going to be part of my next build. It's a beautiful case. It's absolutely one of my favorite, just overall, using that cooler and that motherboard. I think that motherboard just, ASRock did such a good job with that. It's gorgeous. The only way I could improve that is if it had the rear connectors on it. But again, you don't really see that many wires anyway. And with the liquid cooler, you can't really hide the hoses. So you're not going to have a 100% clean build regardless. For what we paid and for what we got, that is a fantastic, beautiful, high-performing, reliable, secure 10 or 12-year system. Easy. Easy. And it's gorgeous. But it's heavy. That's without a discrete GPU in it. If I add a 4090 Ti in that thing, holy cow, it's right now, it's uncomfortable for me to lift it and move it. It's right on the edge of being too heavy. And as I get older, that's not getting any easier. With a case like that, there's definitely no wheels that you can, add onto it other than putting it on some kind of a skateboard or platform that you design that it can sit on. But again, even if it had wheels, it doesn't help me get it up on the table and then take it down. And having just recently done that, it's right on the edge of being too heavy. But just be prepared is all I'm saying. Thank you for the super chat contribution, Mark, and let us know how your build goes. I think you'll love it, as long as you don't have to move it. Phil Stodd said his power was cut for 10 days when Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast. Yeah, great reason to have a generator if that's happening regularly. And regularly means more than once in your life. You live in a particular area and you get hit with a storm, snowstorm, hurricane, tornado, whatever it is, and it happens once in your life, I wouldn't worry about it. But if it happens twice, I'd be buying a generator. Wise Mining says, never dare me. Our friend Buster's checking out for the evening. Thanks for hanging out with us, Buster. Good to see you, my friend. Doman 2000 said he's got a Windows 11 Dell Latitude. The model is an E6410. The in-use RAM is 2.4 gigs. The compressed amount of RAM is 0.2 gigs and an available 3.5. That has 6 gigs of RAM in it? Yeah, some laptops did have a 4 and a 2. Interesting. I love getting information like that because there's so many different variable configurations of laptops and desktops and how you use them, that to get a consensus, right, that when I'm presenting information to a general audience, that the information will hopefully apply to 60% or more than 50% of the audience. Anything else would be considered niche. And while we do sometimes talk about niche things, sometimes I don't know if it's niche, or I assume it isn't, or assume it is, and my assumption's wrong. For example, when we did the diagnostic of the Synology that Mitch has, the NAS, where it was blinking a blue light, and he talked to Synology, and they said, that means you need to replace the NAS. I was skeptical. I'm like, I don't think that's what that means. I think they're just trying to sell you a new NAS. Remember, they're not getting paid to tell him this. They just want him off the phone. If they charged for support, they might be more incentivized to help. But just because you can reach out for free doesn't mean the advice you're getting is the same as paid advice. He brought the NAS over here. We diagnosed it live on camera to a bad power brick, and that diagnostic was easy. Rather than hook it up to a multimeter and check the voltages and put a load on it and check the amperage, what we did is we went on Amazon and just bought another power brick for 15 bucks, waited till it arrived, and said, Mitch, bring it over. We plugged his power brick in, saw the blinking light, plugged the Amazon generic power brick in that matched the right connector type and voltage, everything, polarity, and the NAS worked. You don't need all these specialty tools to diagnose unless you're doing that for a living over and over throughout every day or multiple days. It's just easier to swap the part and see if it makes a difference. It's already broken, and the Amazon thing we bought is fully returnable for 30 days. Why am I buying a $1,500 multi-tester and spending an hour trying to figure out the diagnostic on it when I can just, in 3 seconds, plug a power connector on to a different power adapter and see if it works? And it worked. And I said, I'm going to release this video because there are other Synology owners out there that might experience exactly what Mitch experienced. But I don't imagine there'll be that many. I was wrong. That video's got, 10,000, 20,000 views. There's that many Synology owners, and there's that many that have had the problem that they would search for that. Shocked me. No pun intended. So that's why when I get feedback from you guys, it's helpful to me to understand are you the niche person or are you not? And based on how many similar comments we see from others, that helps me gauge my audience interests, and I hope is representative of the regular viewer, not regular viewers, but the regular YouTube viewers who maybe stumble on my content versus the regular viewers who watch all my content or most of my content. You might get to know me better, but I don't get to know you unless you share information with me. And then the more of you do that, the more sort of an overview I get of what you're most interested in, right? What I think may be niche, maybe the vast majority of my audience is using that thing. But my experience with my business customers is they're not using it, therefore you're not using it either, at least enough so to be making a video dedicated about it. But I'm making an assumption here, so do feel free to express your interests here. Certainly appreciate that in the comment section or even on the message boards. Patrick said he's been using his cell phone to get drivers for his desktop, sometimes before I'm even out of bed in the morning. In the past, I used to load a gaming laptop and found myself loading it less. Yeah. I think a lot of people have some difficulty moving files from their phone to their computer. And because there's so many different phones, you know, you've got the Apple iOS platform, you've got the Android platform, and then you've got the additions and customizations of Android from Google Phone to Samsung. You know, Samsung devices are very easy from one Samsung device to another. Samsung has their own tools. So if you have a Samsung laptop and a Samsung phone, it's very easy to get them to communicate together along with a Samsung tablet, etc. Even a Samsung TV. All these things connect with Samsung's own proprietary infrastructure, but that's not the only way they can connect. It just gets more technical. Because Apple's infrastructure is protected by Apple and no one else is allowed to use it without their permission, their connections can seem more seamless and obvious for the less technical, but it also restricts how you can use it and what you can use it with. And you pay a lot more money for it. And Mitch Morrison says the power adapter fix we did on his Synology, what is that, 2 years ago? He says it's still going strong. We were concerned that because it was a generic power adapter, we don't know the quality. Is it going to last as long as the original Synology? It's one way to find out. And so far, we're on at least a year or two on that. Can I help you?
And just a side note, the new Samsung phones drop tomorrow.
Oh, wait a minute. Today's the 21st? Yeah. So sometimes in late January, usually, Samsung makes their big announcement of their new Samsung line of product coming out. That may include laptops, tablets, and of course phones, or the smartwatches, or the little health rings, and all this other stuff that Samsung makes. And so in late January, Samsung has a press event. They don't do it at CES anymore. They make their own, there's like developers conference, so Worldwide Developers WWDC from Apple does that. Microsoft doesn't participate in CES anymore. They haven't for a few years. So these companies will create their own press events. Samsung has decided that in late January, they're going to come out and talk about officially, because otherwise it's rumor, the new Galaxy S25, right? And then they'll open pre-orders for it with some incentives. If you pre-order, offer trade-ins on any phone you've got now, and try and get those pre-sales up. And will ship when the product releases, usually 2 to 3 weeks after the conference. I don't know those dates. I probably could Google it. But if you're interested in the newest Samsung phones, tablets, laptops, etc., tomorrow's the big day for that Samsung event. Thank you for the reminder, Mara. And of course, you're going to see it all over all the tech news. You won't be able to avoid it, whether you like it or not. Patrick says he's been using Ether, Bluetooth, or Windows Phone Link lately a lot in Windows 11 24H2. So with Samsung, I use something called QuickShare, and QuickShare makes it super painless and easy by utilizing Bluetooth on your phone and your computer. QuickShare is something that's part of Windows 11, or you can download it from the Microsoft Store on Windows 10. It's a Samsung utility. And your modern Samsung phone should have, when you go to share a photo, and you hit that share button, one of the options should be quick share. And it'll transfer that wirelessly to your computer so you don't have to run a USB cable between them. And the computer doesn't have to be a Samsung computer. But if it is a Samsung computer, quick share is already preloaded on it. So like my Galaxy laptop had quick share on it, but an Intel Nook didn't. But you just go to the Microsoft store and get it. It's free. And it's safe because it's from Samsung. So yeah, there's probably equivalent utilities from other manufacturers. I'm a Samsung guy at this point. I like my Samsung TVs. I like my Samsung laptops. I like my Samsung phone. I like my Samsung tablet. Not a smartwatch guy. Overall, I don't really wear jewelry anymore, but mostly I don't need a watch. I've got a phone. Also, the screen would be too small for me to read it. It's just annoying. And when the batteries go out in those, you just throw them away. So it's e-waste as far as I'm concerned. So just because Samsung makes it doesn't mean I like it. I just want to say I'm not blindly loyal to Samsung. I think as long as they're offering products I'm interested in, and they make a good quality, and it's at a good price, I'm going to buy it. And it just so happens I like their laptops, I like their tablets, and I like their TVs, and I like their phones. But that's subject to change. Anything else Samsung makes? I mean, I like their NVMe drives, right? But I don't usually use Samsung flash drives, although you can buy those too. I'm not a big fan of those. I prefer SanDisk flash drives. But not all SanDisk flash drives, just the extremes. Okay, so again, no blanket statements. There's things I like, things I don't like. There's things that make sense, but not everything. It's somewhere in there we find our balance. A lot of the tech channels, they just paint a picture one way. They show you one side of a coin, and they don't even mention the coin has a backside. So if nobody tells you, it may not be obvious to you that you're being limited to the information, that it's literally one-sided. There should be two sides, minimal, to any subject matter that somebody is promoting. There's pros, but there's also cons. No matter how you look at it, you can't have a front without a back. Overall, somebody might be enthusiastic and just talk about the pros and not even realize they're doing it, because to them the cons are inconsequential or pale in comparison. But to you, you might see it differently. You might say, well, if that's the consequence of this benefit, it's not worth it to me for that price, or it's taking that decision making away from you. So I try to cover both sides, and that's why blanket statements never work for me. There's no absolutes that fit everybody all the time. Otherwise, we're right back to racism and other terrible attitudes that don't judge each individual until given a reason that you would change your mind about an individual, but not necessarily about all individuals. Just that one over there. All right. So that's my attitude anyway. That's the way I see the world. Phil Stodd says, Samsung does not appear to make a standard flip phone anymore. I'm not a smartphone aficionado. My dumb phone has never locked me out. Yeah, but that also means it doesn't lock out a thief, right? So if somebody steals your phone, see what I'm getting at? The lock is there to keep bad people out, to keep people who don't belong in there out. No differently than the lock on the front door of your house. Do you just leave your front door unlocked? Or the lock on your car doors? Do you just leave your car doors unlocked? Because they'll lock you out too. No differently. If you don't understand how the lock works, that's on you. If you choose to not learn how the lock works, and you're going to blame the device, oh, well, it's the car's fault. No, it isn't. It isn't the car's fault. That's an interesting perspective, Phil, to say it's the device's fault. I can assure you, being locked out of a phone is not normal. Most people who have phones don't experience that. But some do. Some also lock themselves out of their cars or their house. Sometimes it's just a simple mistake that they made. Sometimes a mechanical lock can break. The key will break off inside the lock. But that usually gave you warnings before it happened, like the lock was getting stiffer, and rather than you address that with some oil or some WD-40, you just kept using it, and it kept getting tighter and tighter, and one day you just broke the key off inside the lock, and now you can't get in anymore, and you say, it's the damn lock. No, it's not the lock. And if we didn't live in such a horrible world where people attack random strangers for no reason other than their own personal gain, even though you've never wronged them and you don't know who they are, you made yourself an easy target, and that's why they went after you. Now, if you prefer a flip phone because you don't need the internet on your phone, I understand. But that's not what people are buying. Samsung doesn't make it because there's no money in that. They've got to be profitable. They're not a charity. If everybody wants just a phone without internet, Samsung will make that. Samsung's not deciding what you will buy. You're, as a consumer, when you're making a purchase, you're voting. And the mass amount of voters right now, currently in 2025, voting on this with their money, they're buying smartphones. And that is determining what's available to you and what the manufacturer will build. It's not the other way around. The market always decides. So it may be Samsung's not right for you because they're accommodating the bulk of the market, and you do something more specialty. That's fine. But, again, have realistic expectations to why companies design products the way they do. And that depends on the size of the company. If you're building something that not everybody's buying, your company's never going to get as big as Samsung. That's okay. Bill Stott said dumb phones are a smaller target for hackers. Not necessarily for pickpockets and thieves, right? When you talk about hacking online, what you say is true. Remember, there's two sides, like I said before. But if you leave your phone behind at a restaurant, it'll still get stolen or left on an airplane. Someone might take it and not tell you. If you get pickpocketed, they'll still take it. It still has value. They might even use long-distance call on it, bill it to your account, and make international calls. I've seen where people in a bad neighborhood will stand on a corner saying you can call anywhere in the world. And this is before WhatsApp, right? But you can call any phone. And what they've done is they've stolen somebody's phone. And they're saying, here, you can call it, give me $5 and you can make all the international calls you want. And then when you're done, give me the phone back. And then this is not only have they stolen your phone, but now they're using the phone to just other people in the neighborhood until the phone stops working. And then the owner of the phone gets a bill for like $4,000 in long distance calls. So it is still a target. Don't mistake. But that's a target involving physical acquisition of the phone versus virtual acquisition over the internet. And it's a personal choice. I'm not saying that you should have one over the other. You should have what you want. But you don't need to justify why. To me, it's interesting, but I had a flip phone for a very long time before I finally succumbed to the smartphone. People were just astonished. Aren't you a tech guy? Why are you still using a phone? Regular flip phone. Like a Motorola Razr. Shocked. They were almost offended. Like, what do you work for Verizon? You making commission? What do you care what phone I use? And I would explain, I use my phone to make and receive phone calls. That's all I need it for. And at that time, I'd say, what do you use your smartphone for? Oh, I could look up what time a movie starts. Well, I don't, really? I realized we used to look at the newspaper to see when movies start. Are you going to that many movies? Like, you just go online, just go on the computer and bring up the movie theater website. You can see it all. Why would I look at that on a little tiny? Oh, I use it to watch movies. Why would I want to watch a movie on a tiny screen? I grew up in the 80s and the 70s. I want the biggest screen possible. Why would I want to go to that doesn't make any sense. I want to watch a $200 million special effects film on a 6 or 7 screen. You're out of your mind. Oh, I use it to read books. Oh, you know what I use to read books? books. So I'm like, compel me. Give me a reason to buy a smartphone. Give me a practical example of how that's going to change my daily life. And nobody could give me one. I'm like, well, you could look at the weather. I've got a window. I can see the weather right there. I don't need an app. It's right there. What else? Or you can read the newspaper. Okay, I can go to the website too. I can go to the CNN.com or whatever to see the news. I don't need to do that while I'm on the road driving in my car. Or you can text people. I could text people with a flip phone. It was T9, but I could do it. But eventually, I gave in. And I've been addicted to the damn thing ever since, which I knew was going to happen. I knew once I had it, I wouldn't know how to be without it. And I knew that, and that was my justification for not getting it. But now, I can do things on my phone today, now, that I wish I could have had access to years ago. Anytime one of my credit cards or debit cards are used, my phone immediately alerts me the minute the transaction is approved. I see it on my phone. So if I go to the store and I'm paying for something, I hear my phone in my pocket, typically while I'm at the register, go beep. They go, do you want a receipt? Don't need the receipt. I got it right here. I just heard it beep. I don't even have to look at it. If anybody is stealing from me, I will know instantly and I'll shut it down immediately. I don't have to find out in 3 days when I check my account. Also, if I'm ready to make a purchase and I want to make sure the money's in my account so I don't go into a negative balance, I can look right on my phone using my fingerprint so no one else, even if they steal my phone, they can't get into my banking apps. They use a passkey or a fingerprint. So unless you got my fingerprints, even though I've been in this before, you can't get into it. You have to log into the phone with a fingerprint, and then the financial apps require that fingerprint again. Okay, so now I can see PayPal balance, I can see my bank account balance, I can see things where before I would have to come home and check it on the computer. Like, what time does the movie start? I'm not usually driving in the car deciding, let's go see a movie. I'm usually sitting at home going, maybe we should go see a movie. And my default isn't to grab the phone. The phone is also great for whenever I need to photograph things. We are living in a world where we're documenting things. Forget this take my word for it nonsense. I saw a UFO. Show me. Why is it always somebody in the woods filming it at night on a crappy camera? Because it's not real. So now we can record interactions with authoritarian figures such as police to ensure they're being audited. Instead of waiting for body cam footage that ends up being blurred or redacted, that should be, in my opinion, public. And they go, oh no, we can't possibly show you the body cam footage, without blurring it out and redacting it. But if some citizen is filming that same police interaction and posts it up online or broadcasts it live, there's nothing the police can do about it. It's 100% legal. And if they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, or abuse of power, we have an absolute level playing field now that cannot be hidden by people in power who want to hide their embarrassment and maintain their power and abuse. You can't do that without that phone. If you're taking something apart and you're like, I'm not quite sure how this goes together, let me take a quick picture of it. The pictures on these cameras on smartphones are so advanced, and you can pinch and zoom and really get into detail, have instant access to it. Say a friend is visiting, you're like, hey, let's grab a selfie together, let's do that. All of a sudden, I started to realize how crappy my flip phone was. Then I'm traveling and I'm on a road trip and the radio signals go in and out. Sirius XM satellite radio is like $10, $12 a month, and they're looping the same hours of music over and over. So on a long road trip, I keep hearing the same order of songs or the same Howard Stern show interviews. And I'm like, okay, enough of that. I go to Spotify, I download my music onto my phone. So I don't have to worry about using up my internet bandwidth. I don't have to worry about signal strength. The music's on the phone. All the songs I like, I create my own playlist. And if I pay for Spotify, I don't have to listen to any ads. That Bluetooth's to the car, and as I'm driving, I'm hearing music I like. I can randomize the order of it. I can listen to other people's playlists or talk shows or podcasts. more than I can ever drive. There's so much content. I don't have to acquire and curate my own collection. It's all right here. And on top of that, while I'm driving, I don't need a separate GPS. This shows me a map. It also works in conjunction with the music, so the music's not too loud that I can't hear the GPS. The GPS automatically is louder than the music. It says, you know, in 300 feet, turn right. And then the music goes back up again. In the meantime, I can look at the screen and see the map, or I can connect this to Apple CarPlay or Android CarPlay, Android Auto, and be able to transfer this screen onto the computer, the screen in the car. You can't do any of this with a flip phone. Some people might say, I don't own a car because I don't go anywhere. And I will say, you don't go anywhere because you don't own a car. So anyway, I'm a little passionate. I'm a little bit passionate on this subject, Phil. I've been in your shoes. And I really tried to stay in them as long as I could. And here we are. I don't know if that's evolution or de-evolution, to be honest, but I love it now. I would not go back to a flip phone. For all those reasons and more. Those are just the ones off the top of my head. Phil says, I refuse to succumb to the smartphone zombie phenomenon. It's perfectly fine. You do not have to participate. I think where the short-sightedness, in my opinion, is in this assumption that people are zombies because you've thrown a blanket over it. And I'm just opposed to throwing a blanket over anything. There are smartphone zombies. If you are a smartphone zombie, that is your choice, not mine. Only you can prevent yourself from being a smartphone zombie. And the answer isn't necessarily to be without a smartphone, but to exercise discipline and self-control. But if you feel that's too much effort, that's fine too. If you feel like, yeah, I get all the advantages of that, but I don't need it. What I'm hearing is that you're concerned that you can't exercise the self-control to become one of the other people who can't exercise self-control. But if you can exercise self-control, or you simply want to, you can avoid becoming a smartphone zombie. That's completely up to you. You're not a victim of anything other than your own decisions. Just because other people are doing that with their smartphones doesn't mean that's what you have to do with your smartphone. He says, I've seen so many people get hurt by being too engrossed in looking at their phone. Don't be one of those people. Make better decisions. As we've been live this whole time, and no differently than when I'm driving in my car, my phone is silenced. Too many younger people, or people in general, in my opinion, are slaves to their tech. The tech is supposed to be the slave to you. You should not be accommodating the will of the phone. I don't want to be interrupted. So my phone is on Do Not Disturb. It's an easy thing. You just turn it on. It's no big deal. This should be the default. When I want to check my phone, I'll see what phone calls and messages I've missed, and I'll respond to them in my own damn time. I don't have to respond because the phone beeped. It's a choice. So if you don't want the temptation of the phone beeping, going, oh, I wonder what that is, I can't get it out of my head now until I see, turn the damn beep off. It's real easy. Put the phone on Do Not Disturb, and you check it whenever you want. You want to check it every 2 minutes, every 10 minutes, or once a day? It'll all be waiting for you the same. Anyway. Just people making bad choices, that's all. So you're not wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you. But I am saying what other people do and what you do are their choices versus your choices. It's not the phone. It's how it's being used. It's like, I won't buy a Corvette because the people who drive those drive them fast and reckless. So that's the Corvette's fault? Anyway. John Williams says, is Android Auto an app you download to your phone, or is it software you put on a flash drive for your auto? It's something your car will come with as a feature. And it will enable your phone screen to get moved over to the vehicle screen. Might be more convenient for you to use it that way. Okay, listen, I enjoy interacting with you guys. Discussions like that I love, because there's two perspectives. Neither one is right. But I do want to give you food for thought that may not have been presented to you prior. I'm not trying to change your mind. That's not my goal. My goal is, have you considered all of this other information? When you add that information, do you still hold true for the same reasons, or are you holding true just to be stubborn? Either way, I don't care. I just want to give you food for thought that you may not have all of the information that you have concluded what I believe is inaccurately this solution, where I do believe the solution is much more simple, which is it's not what you drive, it's how you drive it. It's not what kind of phone you have, if it's a flip phone or a smartphone, it's how you use it. People are also injured yelling at their kids in the back seat for not, I'm going to turn this car around, boom, and then they hit something because they're looking back at the kids. We have had distracted driving my whole life. We still have drunk driving my whole life. Does that mean I'm never going to have alcohol? Well, not if I'm driving, but otherwise, there's no absolute. I'm not throwing a blanket over it, but that's just my perspective. And all I'm trying to do is share you've shared your perspective with me, and now I'm simply sharing my perspective with you. That's all. Not trying to change your mind. I don't work for T-Mobile. I don't care. Buy a phone, don't buy a phone. Buy a car, don't buy a car. Have a drink, don't have a drink. I don't care. Okay, Jose Lopez with a $1 super chat. Thank you, Jose. Davis Parsons. Thank you, Davis. $10 super chat. He says, I followed your advice and got an ASRock Z790 motherboard with 64 gigs of DDR5 6400 RAM. MemTest is running on them now. Thank you for the help. Nice. I was testing RAM with MemTest the other day on the members only video. And one set of RAM failed. The other set of RAM took 6.5 hours for the completed MemTest for 48 gigs or 96 gigs of RAM. So it took a long time. And what I decided to do was to capture this. Let's see if I can find it. Because right at the end of MemTest, right at the end of 6.5 hours of testing is when you see the result. And if you're not there in the room watching it for 6.5 hours, you never quite know when it's going to end. And here's what that looks like. You'll see the time running there in the middle of the screen to the left, 6 hours, 36 minutes. It's on pass number 4, which is the default of MemTest. And then when it's done, you're going to get this great big end screen that says pass or fail. Many people never make it that far. So for those of you who've never seen it before, that's what a completed MemTest looks like after, again, depending on how much RAM you're testing. That was 96 gigs of RAM completely passed, all 4 loops. So I'm pretty confident I can use that RAM. And then the issue I had with it, and the reason why I was testing it, was because it wasn't compatible with the Z890 chipset. But on an AMD or a different chipset, it runs fine. So I'll keep that RAM. But the other kit is actually bad, and I'll return that to Amazon while I'm still in my 30-day return period. Or actually, it's more than 30 days because it was purchased prior to Christmas. And Amazon gives those purchases until February 1st for returns, in case they were given as gifts. So that gives them 30 days after the gift giving date. A little bit more than that. Davis says, yep, I saw that screen. That means you were patient. You let the whole test run. Some people go through one pass. They go good enough. I do that sometimes. But if you have the time, sometimes memory problems don't occur until the memory heats up. That's why those defaults in memtest have been set that way by the developer. That's just being extra sure. And in this case, I wanted to be extra sure. Mortant says he's got Android Auto in his Volkswagen. It's great. John Paul Bacon suggests that John Williams look for Android Auto at the Play Store to see if he can add it to his phone. Phil Stodd said, I can agree with your perspective regarding the phones. I just prefer to keep my higher tech static and not mobile. I understand. I understand preference. Believe me, I've got mine. And it would be rude for me to not respect others when it comes to preference. Kate Truss says, the problem with smartphones is they hold too many private and sensitive information. You know what? When you do business with a company online, you are voluntarily giving up a lot of private, sensitive information. Whether it's a medical facility, it's all computerized. Whether it's a credit card or financial institution, there's no escaping that. And just because it's in your pocket, as long as you secure it properly, it may actually be safer in your hands than it is in the other party's hands, being the financial institution or the medical facility. Those are the ones that are typically the targets. They have a lot more data than just yours. You know what I'm saying? So you're never going to escape that. But again, it's only going to put into the phone what you put into it. So if you don't want your personal sensitive information in there, don't put it in there. It's up to you, if that matters to you, to control that. It's not like you're a victim of it. You're not. You're only a victim of the choices you make. It's not the device. It's how you use it. Period. Essential Working Too Hard said, there are way too many distractions in cars today. I agree. Completely agree. You know, in a Tesla, if you've got to touch the screen to open the glove box, there's no manual handle. You've got to touch the screen to turn on the air conditioning. There should be certain dedicated buttons that you can just reach for and feel as you get to know your car. Turn on the heat, turn on the, air conditioning, change the radio, even steering wheel controls for the radio and cruise control, so you don't have to turn your head and look at stuff. Not when you're driving anyway. On the other hand, you can go to the extreme and the cars don't even need you anymore. They'll drive themselves. Then you can sit around and play with the tech all day. Pick a lane. All right, as I said 40 minutes ago, I'm going to wrap it up for today, but I do really enjoy interacting with you guys. It's a lot of fun hearing other people's perspectives and reasonings and being able to counter that just for thought. And an exchange of ideas. Don't really care for approval or disapproval. That doesn't matter to me. What I do care about is that we share our reasoning, right? Even if the reasoning is just because, that's fair. You're allowed. I respect it either way. But just in case, there might have been some information that you didn't have before that makes you reconsider, or you provide me with information, allows me to reconsider. This is how we grow and evolve. So that's my goal here, is to spread the information. What you do with it, that's out of my hands. Thank you guys so much for being, those of you who are members, for your super chats, for your Amazon gift cards and PayPal contributions. This channel is brought to you by you. You're the sponsor, and we do want to make content that you want to see in much the same way a sponsor is going to tell us what we're going to make. You're going to say these words, Carey, and you're going to show this product. Well, as sponsors, the sponsors of this channel, let us know what you want to see. Let us know what your preferences are. If we get a number of people all sort of in the same ballpark with technology, we want to see flash drives, we want to see wireless, we want to see this. I can't read your mind. You have to tell me. Okay? So please let me know what you'd like to see. Leave a comment in the comment section. Join us on our message boards. And of course, when we're live, Be great if you hang out with us in the chat. We have an amazing community here. You guys are just amazing. I consider you all friends, and I talk to you no differently. You ask Mitch Morrison, he'll tell you. I talk to him exactly the same way. For some reason, he's still my friend. So there you go. Rich Robin says, don't always have your Wi-Fi on all day. It will connect to Cox Wi-Fi networks all over town if you have Cox as your ISP. That's funny, Rich, because that actually happened to Mara yesterday. And I'm like, turn your Wi-Fi off. It'll turn itself back on when you're back home. You don't have to. And she's like, why is my phone on Wi-Fi? It's so weird you just brought that up. That literally just happened the other day. But yeah, Wi-Fi will just sit there and drain your camera, your phone battery. So why have it on all the time? Morton says, I approve this message. John Williams says, thank you all the time as you are awesome and good night. Well, back at you. You're awesome too. Thank you for hanging out, for joining us here and being a part of this absolutely amazing community we have here on the internet. I can't speak enough of just how proud I am that we've attracted the right individuals from all over the world to hang out with each other and have open discussions without insulting or making somebody feel unwelcome. Definitely, that's the most important part, is I want people to feel welcome here. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, as long as you're not a jerk. That's the one condition. John Paul Bacon says, take care and peace and blessings for all. Thank you. Mark Baggett says, great stream as always. Don't encourage me. Thank you, Mark. And again, thank you for those super chats from our friends. Let's see. Davis Parsons, Jose Lopez. Dustin Fuller had contributed $5 earlier. I don't think I saw it. My apologies, Dustin. Thank you for supporting the channel. Our friend Mark Gaines and Peter, they're in the Netherlands. Charlie Purdy, thank you for your support, along with Frankie B, Gerardo Quintana Roo, who renewed membership, and our friend Buster, and also a new member, Maria del Carmen Martinez. Thank you for becoming a member and supporting us here. Thank you to Lou Greenia for the PayPal contribution before the show. And one other thank you, maybe if I'm missing anything. Yeah, checking emails, another great thing to have on the go, by the way. Forgot to mention that one. And a shout out to our friend John Wilson out there in Texas. He was kind of dormant for a while in the chat, but now he's back. And if he's watching this later, just a shout out and a hello to him. Thank you as always to our friends Paul Gray in Australia, Buster in Scotland, Oystein in Norway, Frankie B in New York, our friends Phil Stodd, Charlie Purdy, Mark Gaines. You guys are just very generous individuals. Liv Greenia, more than I can name. These are like super members here, generous contributors, without whom we just wouldn't be able to do as much content or buy silly gadgets that may or may not be useful. We'll see. That'll wrap it up for me for today. Thanks to Mara, as always, for all the background administrative work she's doing, which is a full-time job here with a channel this size. Thumbnail creation, product descriptions and links, and talking to other companies to see if we can get products for review without, selling out. It's a challenge. Try it sometime. That'll wrap it up for me. I will see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.